Good morning, welcome to Yorkshire. Today is the UCI Road World Championship for junior women. It's a lovely morning here in Harrogate as we get ready for this women's junior road race. Yesterday we had another spectacular day of racing. We're heading into the traditional very busy weekend in the UCI Road World Championships. And we're looking forward to a great competition this morning. 12 degrees centigrade, 13 kilometres an hour. A little bit cloudy, but there is some blue sky. So the prospect of a nice afternoon is certainly in order. Harrogate has welcomed these World Championships warmly. We've enjoyed being here, and the weekend is just going to get busier and busier. The Victorian Spa Town is ideally positioned for all of these events. And of course, we've had different start towns all the time as we get the riders riding in on the different courses, the different roads, making their way in towards Harrogate itself. It hosted the first stage of the Tour de France. 300,000 people came out to watch that Tour de France stage in 2014 when Marcel Kittel was the first across the line. Harrogate itself, a fantastic shopping, leisure and entertainment place. There's loads of little cafes, booming little businesses as well. And everyone I've spoken to over the last few days who's been here has just enjoyed wandering around and discovering what this place has got to offer. The International Centre, one of the largest conference and exhibition centres in Europe, and that's where all the press are all of the time. Last year, it was the mountain biker Laura Stigger who was the surprise winner of the Road World Championship. She won in her home city of Innsbruck. It was a very fast race, and of course in Innsbruck we had the mountain for the riders to contend with, and that's really where Laura Stigger put her skills to best use. She went on the attack and took a surprising victory, but she was confident all of the time. Lene of France was in second and Boyard of Canada was in third. The riders making their way into the Doncaster Dome to sign on. This rider everyone is looking at. She was the winner the other day of the individual time trial in a very strong Russian team. Igor Goriva was extremely confident. This morning, the atmosphere in the Doncaster Dome is spectacular. Loads of school kids here cheering on all the riders. This is a new world-class cycling facility in Doncaster. The track is outside is 1 kilometre long, 6 metres wide. It's a safe environment for cyclists of all ages. And outside, the likes of Ed Clancy and Graham Briggs, well-known British riders, make sure that the kids get some good entertainment and learn how to ride. The course itself then follows a flat but rather exposed opening 60 kilometres. The winds this morning could play their part. There's a gradual drag into Harrogate with some little tricky climbs. And of course, the last few climbs could be the springboard for a late attack. We work our way in towards Parliament Street in Harrogate. This is the only race that doesn't use the finish circuit. So it's going to be an interesting one, and we'll see how these junior women ride it. Traditionally, they ride flat out. Work our way down past Wetherby, in past Spofforth, and then it's the run-in all the way to the traditional finish at the top of Parliament Street in the centre of Harrogate. The atmosphere is very, very warm. We've had some videos of this already this morning as the commissaires get the bikes checked and scan them, of course, for motors to make sure there's no cheating. This is our commissaires panel. This track here was made possible thanks to Doncaster Council and a successful application from British Cycling's Places to Ride programme. made possible from a 15 million commitment from government, which was part of the successful bid to bring the World Championships to Yorkshire. So it's all about legacy and making sure that riders continue to blossom in this sport. There's the Belgian team alongside me this morning to bring us this race as we look at Eleanor Backstead, the rider who was bronze medalist the other day in the women's junior time trial. Alongside me this morning, Commonwealth champion Rochelle Gilmore. Rochelle, we've seen some wonderful racing. What about today?
Fantastic week of racing so far. So much excitement going on here at the World Championships, not only in the races, during the races, but the atmosphere around the place, especially in the fan zone. There's so much going on there, so very great atmosphere. I'm very excited about today's women's race. It's the junior race is always very exciting. You don't know exactly who could come out of the woodwork, someone you haven't seen before racing at international level. There's some great international races for juniors now, so it's going to be an exciting race, and having Ellie Backstead in there after a bronze medal in the time trial, she's got a very good chance of taking the win here, but anything can happen. All-out favourite, probably Jastrab from America. Her and Ellie seem to be that kind of rivalry that we saw between Anna Mears and Victoria Pendleton, but to the junior level already this year. A couple of races won by one of them, and then another race won by another, so there's a bit of rivalry there. But anyone else could also come out and win this race.
Of course, we've got this Russian rider, Agil Garieva, who was so calm and collected the other day in the individual time trial, despite going totally the wrong way on the run-in. And she just looks, this morning, again, she looks totally chilled and focused.
Well, it's one rider we definitely haven't seen too much of. Obviously, races in Russia quite a bit, but outside internationally, we haven't seen much of her. So, I mean, road racing is a completely different thing to the time trial. But like we saw in the elite women's time trial, Chloe Dygart was so strong, even if she's not a road race specialist, you'd think that we might see something special of her in the road race. So the Russian Garieva will be watching her today to see if she can break away and use the strength that she had in the time trial to win this world title.
And of course, today, the American team, you've mentioned Megan Jastrab, who we've seen win races this season. The American team were out at the side of the road yesterday. 1 kilometre to go is around where their hotel is. And they were all out cheering on Quinn Simmons as he took the world title in the men's race. How much motivation is that going to give these riders this morning?
Yeah, I think in the American team, the morale will be super high, and Jastrab would have felt that yesterday with the fans and the reaction that the win. I mean, it wasn't a super surprise win, but the way that the Americans get behind their athletes is absolutely phenomenal. I think Jastrab will be getting a little bit of a taste of that last night, thinking, you know, it's my chance tomorrow. So she's had a pretty dominant season and probably the favourite on paper for today's race, as we just get a look at the Dutch, who have to be one of the strongest nations. In regards to strength in numbers, they definitely have the best setup for junior racing in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
we'll touch on that a little bit later, but there's so much to talk about when it comes to Dutch junior racing.
Well, yesterday we saw the men's race, which was literally flat out from the start. I don't anticipate this will be any different. The women now lining up. 95 junior women here on the start line, ready for this race. We'll see how they do decide to ride it. It's a little bit different to what it's a little bit different to the other courses. It doesn't have the same hills and stuff like that we've seen, but as you know, flat racing with wind can be just as difficult as riding in the climbs.
Well, you think it would really suit this this team if the wind starts blowing. The Dutch team will be one to look out for, because they'll just have the experience of the crosswinds, won't they? As they roll out, a lot of nervous faces there on the start line for the junior women's road race here at the World Championships.
Making their way around this wonderful cycling facility here in Doncaster, which has just been opened as we look down. So if you're a youngster and you're watching this and you're thinking, I'd like to get into cycling, this is absolutely perfect. As you can see, a totally closed road circuit in Doncaster, and local to Doncaster, so many well-known bike riders Ed Clancy, Graham Briggs, Russell Downing, Dean Downing, and so many others who are not far from this local area. And the peloton just rolling out. Neutralised section at the moment. Doncaster, the birthplace of the broadcaster Jeremy Clarkson, who of course was famous for Top Gear, as there we see Eleanor Backstead on the right-hand side. If you're a fan of boy bands, Louis Tomlinson of One Direction comes from Doncaster. And the world's oldest goldfish won at a fun fair, died in 1999 and was won in 1956 in Doncaster. And it was called Tish, just for a little bit of fun this morning. This is Alessia Patuelli making her way into the peloton. Rochelle, you look down on this. It's a great facility, isn't it? This brand new cycling track outside Doncaster.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's an amazing thing to have a specific cycling track anywhere around the world, to be able to go there, especially for newcomers to the sport. They're a little bit nervous with the traffic and clipping in out of the pedals. I was talking to someone yesterday that was new to cycling, and it really did bring home all the difficulties and challenges that come with somebody coming into the sport at a late age. And a track and a circuit like this closed is just amazing. It's an amazing facility.
They've done a tremendous job here in Doncaster of getting this together. And of course the riders will do this one lap, neutralised, and then they will go out on the course and start the ride down to the finish in Harrogate. This 86-kilometre race today. So many well-known riders have won the junior world title. We go through the names of riders who have appeared on the top step of the podium, and one of these riders is going to emulate them today. Nicole Cook, twice junior world champion. Marianne Vos, world champion in 2004. Jolien Dora, 2008. Lucy Garner of Great Britain, double world champion. Amelia Diedrichsen, double world champion. Chloe Dygert, the winner the other day of the time trial, world champion. Elisa Balsamo, all those riders who we know from the women's peloton. So
absolutely,
important.
the big names, and the just to be more specific about which of the junior world champions have gone on to win a world championship. There's Catherine Marcel, who we spoke about the other day. Nicole Cook, of course. Marianne Vos, of course. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Amelia Diedrichsen. So not a huge list, but those are the athletes that have gone on from winning a junior world road championship to an elite road world championship, and most of those names we just listed have won more than one.
Ah, very true, yes.
So, I mean, it says a lot. You can see Ellie on the right there just talking to her teammates. They look quite relaxed. Maybe Ellie a little bit more nervous. Being a team leader always brings pressure. And it's interesting because when you're in a team environment and there's riders that are domestiques and they think, oh, I'd love to be a leader one day, and you put them in the position on the spot one day, who wants to win this race, who thinks they can, who wants the support of the entire team, then you'll see a little bit of hesitation, because to actually put your hand up and say, I want the support of the team, I believe I can win, it's a lot of pressure.
Especially as a junior rider. There's the Great Britain team at the front in this team today. Eleanor Backstead, twice bronze medalist in the Junior World Championships. Ellen King, Anna Shackley, and Amelia Sharp and Abby Smith. That's the team of Great Britain today. Anna Shackley being supported and cheered on by her team, Team 22, which was formed in 2013 to develop young riders. And Anna Shackley, the second rider from Team 22 to ride the Junior World Championship. So I know she's got a lot of fans out there cheering her on today and hoping that she can either win or help her teammate Eleanor Backstead or Abby Smith try and take this Junior World title today. So we've done one lap. We're almost at the end before we go out on the course. As always, the following cars there, the red car and the Shimano neutral service car, making sure that the riders are looked after. And once we get out here, then the convoy of cars will form up behind with the spare bikes for all the riders, and all the individual teams will support their riders too as we make our way out of the Doncaster Dome. This complex has got 50 different activities in it. It's got the UK's only split level ice rink and a concert venue which had the likes of Elbow and Prodigy recently play in it. 1,000 school children have come out to support the riders, and we're about to make our way out now of the Doncaster Dome and get this race underway. Very early morning, isn't it? These riders, oh, a little bit of congestion as riders make their way out of the Doncaster Dome. A few riders having to get their feet out the pedals. But it's an early start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a super early start. They put 2 races on today at the World Championships. They have to fit in, so the under-23 men are this afternoon. But I don't think the junior women will be fazed by this. I mean, it would be lovely to see them race in the afternoon simply to have bigger crowds, but their race is a little bit shorter than the under-23 men, so you know, it's logistically difficult. Sometimes people think that the junior women just get the raw end of the stick and they just give them, you know, whatever fits in easiest, but it's a very difficult event to plan every year, the World Championships. It's getting bigger and bigger, more and more events, and you know, the women are just getting on with the job. I'm sure they've raced many races in the brisk, cold mornings. The Italian here just having a problem in the neutral zone. Looks like maybe a bike change. But that's what the neutral zone's all about, just to, you know, those first few pedal strokes and things can go wrong with the bikes. Hopefully the mechanics have done a good job and that doesn't happen, but a lot of nervous riders there. So during the neutral, if somebody has a mechanical, they'll generally hold them up a little bit and wait until everyone's back in.
Just looking through the list of the different nationalities, and I might have missed it, but there isn't an Australian on the list today, is there?
No, actually, when I made the comment before saying that we could see a winner from any nation is possible, it won't be possible for the Australians because they're not here this year, and they've been so strong in the past in the Junior World Championships. It's, you know, more mechanical problems.
This is Daniela Campos of Portugal. A bit of a problem, but she won't panic because the race hasn't started.
Yeah, no, they won't let the race start without her if this has happened in the neutral zone, so Shimano spares. Very quick to service her there.
A fan at the side of the road.
Yeah, the Australians, Anthony, they have produced, they've had a very, very strong junior scene in the past, and especially on the track. So many gold medals won at the Junior World Championships. And for me, I went to the Junior World Championships twice on the road, and it's just very difficult to comprehend that there is no junior team here. It's such an amazing experience. Another
problem here, we're getting a lot of mechanicals. Nora Jenkosova of Slovakia. I think she had a little problem in the neutralised section with a touch of wheels because her number is already off, and she's had gear trouble as well.
Yeah, it looks like she might have had a touchdown there.
She gets going. This is Doncaster Racecourse, one of the oldest in the world. Hosts 2 famous horse races, the Doncaster Cup and probably the most well-known, the St Leger, which is the oldest classic horse race in the world. And the riders just making their way past the Doncaster Racecourse now. And this rider making her way back into the convoy. It's still pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, she's still going to have to work, and it'll certainly get the heart rate up. There's no point in the team sending anyone back. Not that she would have too many, but in the neutral zone, she doesn't need to panic. She can wait till the cars pass her so she can get the benefit of the slipstream behind the cars and just work her way up.
Riders on the front riding very, very easily, and as you can see, they ride nice and steady, but further on back, once you're out of the shelter of the peloton, it's extremely difficult. And today's a little bit windier. When we look out the window, the wind conditions are certainly, the leaves are moving an awful lot more. And as we move into the weekend, we're expecting another puncture. We're not expecting another puncture, but we've got one, number 30. And that's Alessia Patuelli of Italy, already with a puncture. Gets the wheel undone. That's very professional, already getting the back wheel ready so that she can just literally get the wheel out and then it will be all right. She's not as calm and composed as the other Italians that we've seen.
Paul, the Italian mechanic, he's a little bit more jittery than the rider, but you know, they're emotional. We said that yesterday. We see again talking with the hands and the body language. We don't need to hear what she's saying. she's disappointed that she's not going to have her original wheel with the original tyre pressure. You don't know if the wheel's lined up properly, so you spend the whole race thinking, oh, my brake's rubbing. You know, so it is, I think it really does play with your mind. Once you get into the race and the attacks start happening and everything, you tend to forget about it. But it's frustrating for an athlete that's, you know, they want their equipment to be perfect and they might have, you know, a new tyre on one wheel and not on the other. So, yeah, it can be, for the juniors, they don't have a whole fleet of equipment that they can just have everything set up identically and brand new. So this preferred equipment. And now she's going to have a spare wheel in there. And it'll play on her mind for a little bit, but once the race gets started, she'll have other things to focus on.
She certainly will. This is one of the South African riders who is in the field today. In fact, the only one, Kelsey Van Schuur. As we see the Italian rider making her way back into the peloton. She doesn't need to panic. She was getting a little bit emotional there, but that's not a surprise. She can just work her way through the race convoy. Her team car's coming up to make sure she's okay and make sure she's guided back in. The race hasn't started and won't start until she makes her way to the very back of this peloton. And once she's there, then they will drop the flag. And this neutralised section being held for quite a long time. She just needs to be a little bit careful here. She makes her way through the cars. But these women riders, they're juniors, but they're very experienced already, and they are used to riding in these convoys. The only thing they won't be used to is going to the right-hand side to get round the cars, because normally all the convoy is on the other side of the road. Her team car bringing her up on the right-hand side, and it is allowed, and the commissaires actually will say to the team car, bring her up quickly, because they want this race to get underway. They don't want to hold this race for as long as they have had to. They want everyone to be able to get racing. This is the Chilean rider who is in the field today, getting ready for flat-out racing all the way down to Harrogate. As we make our way both sides of the roundabout, the Chilean rider Catalina Soto Campos, and I understand that she spends most of her time racing down in Australia. So she's being cheered on today by many of the Australian fans who are in her local club. We're getting close to the start of today's race. She's nearly there now, and the minute she's there, then we will get this race underway. She's almost on the back of the peloton. She can see them just in front. It's taken her quite a long time. It's just as well that she didn't puncture just after the race start, because I think it would have taken her 10 or 15 kilometres to get herself back into the peloton this morning.
Not a nice World Championship for the Italians like we saw yesterday in the men's junior race. The Italian having a mechanical early on and a long chase, and that's what cost him his race. He didn't finish in the end. But the favourite for the men's junior race from the Italian team but she's back in now. She'll take a few deep breaths and then get back into the mix of it.
Yeah, this race now will get underway. The commissaires will be radioing to each other now in all the cars and saying, right, do we have everybody here? Let's get this race underway and make sure that we have a safe junior race. You can see a little bit of urgency now. Radio Tour is telling us that the peloton is all together, and the red cars, which house the commissaires, the race jury, will now be saying, right, let's get this race underway. And I think we're going to see the flag dropped by the commissaire, who will stand out of the roof, as always. This is Sandell Park. There's a little special fan hub within Sandell Park, which is along the footways outside the park. There's some cycle training going on down here today, promoting some cycling health and fitness. There's inflatables for the kids, and there's some public arts and crafts sessions to make bunting for fences in the park. Still being held. You rode the Junior World Championships. Can you recall what it was like for you this first day that you were in such a big race?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Such a long time ago, 1998. in the Netherlands, actually a similar course to Amstel Gold, using the Kalberg in 98, and 99 I think was Verona. I don't have the best memory, so yeah, but in 98, the first year, I can actually still feel the emotions of just sitting in the common room, seeing the likes of Cadell Evans and Mick Rogers walk around the room and, you know, say, how you doing, how you feeling, you know, you got your gears, you know, everything's sorted, your bike, are you happy with everything? So, and giving us tips, so I can still feel the emotions of being in the thick of it and, you know, pulling on the national champions jersey. And just, I mean, you don't know your competition very well. These days, a lot of riders have the opportunity to race internationally, but being from Australia, we didn't know anyone except for our teammates in the peloton. So it was pretty much just stay near the front, and obviously finishing on the Kalberg, not ideal for me, but I think I was still around maybe 13th, could have been 8th, I really don't know, but it wasn't the win, that's for sure. But what they do say about the Junior World Champions, we were talking about how many Junior World Road Champions have gone on to win elite World Road titles. Well, there's also the opinion that the riders who run second or third are most likely to go on to do bigger and better and great things and have a long, healthy career, because it's difficult after you win a world title in the juniors to have the rainbow stripes and then step straight into the elites and have to, you know, unless you're a phenomenal athlete like we saw with Marianne Vos, it can be really difficult mentally, more so than physically. And some women have spoken about this, saying the jump is just, you know, you go from being the best, winning all of your junior races, being a world champion, to just being, you know, hanging on and being in that, you know, yo-yo that's coming on and back and forth on the back of the bunch. So, you know, for the likes of Ellie Backstead, she's going to jump into a pro team next year. Hopefully she'll have a nice program that'll allow her to develop, and that she'll have, I mean, she's got great support with her family who have all been there and they know what it's like to be a professional athlete. But it can be a little bit overwhelming and hard to deal with mentally, just not being the best at the front of every race, controlling every race, you know, riding a race thinking that you could win this race.
Yeah, the one particular rider who's talked a lot about the pressures of being a world champion so young is Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who was world champion as a junior 2010. She then had that spectacular season where she was world champion of the road race, world champion of cyclocross, world champion of mountain biking, all in 1 year. And then the year after, and subsequent 2 years, she just said, I couldn't cope with it. It was too much. And she's been probably the one who's spoken most about the pressures of being so young, and being from France, which is always even more added pressure, and thinking, I can't do this. It's not that physically she can't do it, but mentally she just couldn't deal with it. Very
difficult. There was a few comments from Anna van der Breggen. She didn't win in the juniors, but she said that obviously she was one of the best juniors going around and then went into the elites, and she really struggled mentally, that she was no longer, you know, a rider that was the favourite for races. So she stepped away for a couple of years and came back and worked hard later to reach the level of elite cycling. And we've seen it with Lucy Garner, a huge talent in the juniors, back-to-back junior world championships, and a phenomenal talent. And she knows she has the talent, but it takes time to develop for some athletes. Like we keep referring to the exceptions, like Marianne Vos, but for most athletes it's a very difficult thing to go from being the best to then having to work your way up again to a new level.
This race is still being held. We're almost at what they're now going to make kilometre zero. The pace is really high in that front car, and the riders are riding flat out. There's a real urgency here that they want to make sure that they get to the front. I think we're going to see a very, very fast junior women's race. And they're going to start the race now in 100 metres. So the flag is out at the top of the car, and any moment now this race is going to go. And here it goes now. The riders then at the front. That washing machine effect will take over. We can see, Rochelle, the wind coming from the right-hand side of the road. Well, that's going to be difficult.
If they were to have a slight tailwind, it would also be difficult on restricted gears in the one direction they're riding today. Not too many hills, just a few rollers, but a relatively flat race, so we should see the Dutch take advantage of these winds. Already a problem here for one of the riders. Hungary, I think. We'll get that name to you.
Yeah, one of the Hungarian riders, or the Hungarian rider there at the side of the road. It's either Dorka Jordan or Katja Vass.
I think it's Katja Vass there, so very early problem there. We're not sure if it was a mechanical. Here we go, just talking from Hungary. It might be a loose stem.
Your eyesight's a lot better than mine from a helicopter.
I thought it was something from the front of the bike, so a wheel change there by the Shimano spares, so it's not her team. And once again, we said, you know, they've got to adapt to the challenge mentally of just having a different wheel. She won't have her carbon fibre Edco wheels there anymore. She's got to, now she's talking to a team saying, I want my spare wheel. But she's on a Shimano front for now from the neutral spares. She
should just jump on the bike and get going. The Shimano service guys change things as quick as they possibly can. The issue you have is that years ago, she's panicked a little bit too much because the mechanic would have helped her out a lot and got her going. Years ago, everything was standard, wasn't it? And you could literally take the forks out. The forks were all exactly the same. The wheels used to be set up perfectly on the roof racks, which all had the same size for the wheels. And you literally slotted one out, slotted one in. And that doesn't happen anymore.
No, it's all very different now. You've got a lot of different manufacturers trying to modify and have that edge over their competitors, modify their equipment. So in the juniors here, we won't see the disc brakes, which has added a huge complication, but also a safety rule that came in since I was racing back in the day. They've decided that you can't fold the tips of the forks off, which used to make a front wheel change extremely fast because the front wheel would just drop out and you could throw the new one in. But now, because they have to leave the lips on them, the safety lips, so if you don't do your skewer up properly and you jump off a gutter, your wheel won't fall out because you'll still have those safety lips on the end of the forks. Well, we used to fold those off so we could have a quick wheel change. Now that's forbidden and banned, so it's much safer indeed. And for that, you know, you do lose an extra 5 seconds with having to undo the axles, the skewers of the wheels, and do them back up again. But and we saw that with that wheel change there.
Just heard on Radio Tour a reminder, Seb Piquet, who's Radio Tour. He's the Radio Tour of the Tour de France. Well done to the Hungarian teammate, though. Dorka Jordan is waiting for her teammate at the back, Katja Vass, and she'll try and pace her back up. But Seb Piquet's just reminded all of the team directors and team managers that we are in Great Britain, and service is on the left-hand side of the road, not on the right-hand side of the road. The issue for some of these riders, or majority of these riders, is they are used to pulling over to the right-hand side of the road to get service. They're also used to going round the cars the other side of the road as well, and that is presenting a few issues here or there. And she's, I would say, not really going the best way down the gutter to get back into the peloton. She really should be going down the right-hand side. It's the safest way. You don't really want to be going up the inside of cars, even team cars, because they just won't see you. Working her way back in then, the Hungarian rider, Katja Vass, spinning through. She's doing well, though, to get herself back in, and she's a little bit lucky because this peloton is blocked.
Yeah, I always get nervous when riders are moving through the cars, especially juniors that don't have too much experience in these stressful situations, that they're going to drop their head, because those cars, if they just touch the brakes a little bit, we did see it in the junior men's road race yesterday, it can be extremely dangerous.
Peloton altogether, 95 riders in the peloton. Ireland represented on the left-hand side up towards the front. Sweden also represented. Germany are there. Colombia there in the turquoise colours with the yellow and blue. The Great Britain team over on the left-hand side. Eleanor Backstead moves up. She likes to ride very near the front. She doesn't want to be a rider who is caught anywhere down in the middle of the peloton. She likes to stay out of trouble up towards the front of the group. The Dutch have a strong team here with Femke Gerritsen, Lieke Nooyen, Ilse Plymers, Silke Smulders and Shirin van Undroy, who was the rider who was silver medalist in the time trial during the week. So the riders just getting into the rhythm. No major attacks so far. Rochelle, we had news on women's cycling yesterday as we see the Hungarian rider coming back into the group, safely through here. Yesterday, Boels Dolmans announced that after 2020, so another year, they won't be sponsoring the #1 team in the world, which is a bit of a shock.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge shock to the women's cycling peloton because Boels and Dolmans are two main sponsors of been in the sport of women's cycling for a very long time, and they have taken that team from a smaller club team to #1 team in the world. The team we're talking about, Boels Dolmans, could not have done any more to keep the security of those sponsors. They won every single classic tour. Ooh, a little crash there.
Oops, a crash here, and it looks like she hit the marshal as well, and he was the marshal who was looking after her and trying to make sure she didn't hit the middle of the road. And the poor guy, he gets hit, and he is doing his job to try and look after her.
Hopefully they're both okay.
Yeah, Metja Mukic, well, he was standing there in the middle of the road with a yellow flag, and his job is safety, to just look after her so she doesn't hit the road furniture, and I hope he's okay. They both took a bit of a slam then.
Yeah, that's what I was just speaking about before. You know, they're not so aware of what's going around them because they're so focused on the wheels in front of them and making their way through the peloton, looking for those gaps. But you have to be quite aware there's so much that's going on at this level, and everything happens so fast. Yeah, the marshal looks like he's okay. Maybe a little bit of a limp, but he'll limber up.
And he not only got up...
She's dropped a chain again. That was disappointing.
He not only got up, he even made sure she got on her way. These guys, Rochelle, they don't get mentioned a lot, but they are the guys who you see on the motorbikes all of the time, going past the peloton and picking out the danger signs on the road to try and keep these riders safe. It's a thankless job. They don't get any thanks, do they?
Well, I try to thank them every time I see them because, especially here at the World Championships, they're going out of their way with safety. So they've obviously had a lot of meetings with the organisation saying, you know, safety is the first priority here at this World Championships. And it seems to be there's an extra special effort, and that goes with education. It seems like every marshal that I've spoken to that's trying to make it as safe as possible, they give you an explanation as why they're doing this. This is why we're directing the traffic this way, or this is why we've put these witches' hats here, or you can't cross there, and these are the issues that we have. So they've been very well educated about, you know, the potential things that could potentially go wrong, and they're trying to avoid that. So, you know, that was just an unfortunate situation. The marshal's doing a great job there just to let riders know there was an island coming up, and I think can be quite grateful that she had a little bit of a softer hit than if she had hit that island. So
absolutely.
You can take anything positive out of an unfortunate situation there.
And I hope afterwards she goes and finds him and gives him a hug and says thank you very much for doing his job and getting her safely back on her way. The immediate reaction of him was, she's a rider, she needs to get back in the race, rather than looking after himself. That was the first thing he thought of. And we see the motorbikes going past the peloton all the time, and sometimes it's really hard to get past this churning group of riders, but they get past, and sometimes the riders, when they're tired, they get a bit stressed, some of them, and they don't always move out of the way. And all these guys are doing is going further up the road because they're thinking, I have to get to the next point because I want them to be safe. That's what their entire day is about.
Well, it's one of those situations, isn't it? It happens in every walk of life, that everyone's just trying to do their job, so nobody does anything intentionally. The motorbikes have a responsibility. Sometimes they're being told on the radio to get past the peloton. They need to get to the next intersection to stop the vehicles, pushing through the riders, trying to do what's best for their safety, but in an unfortunate situation, it can cause more chaos and unfortunate situations. So, I mean, nobody's out there to intentionally make things more difficult, but like I said, I think education's the key. Just trying to make sure your motorbike riders have actually ridden a bike. They know that's something that's really important, how quick they can brake, how they can be swerving a pothole and change direction. They've just got to be aware of how the peloton flows. It's really important. And same for the drivers here in the convoy. They need to have experience with cyclists themselves and cycling themselves, just knowing how the flow of cycling goes.
Well, I know in the cars, when you look through some of the cars that are being driven, there's some really experienced drivers have been picked in here to drive all the various cars. For instance, Radio Tour is being driven by a driver who I know has done numerous Giro d'Italia and driven the Chief Commissaire all the time. You've got ex-pro riders, some of the local Yorkshire riders like Dean Downing, and who's been national criterium champion driving cars. So they've tried to pick people who know the flow of a bike race.
Well, within the UCI, they have had a lot of discussion about how to make the convoy and the follow cars a more safer environment following the race. And one of the suggestions was to just bring in professional drivers that are trained specifically to drive in a convoy. But that adds an additional person in the team car, potentially if they required a driver to be specifically a driver and not a director, that it's an extra member of staff that would have to travel with them. So we saw that horrible accident with a driver in the convoy in the Tour of Britain, and since then there's been all measures taken by the UCI to try and make the convoy a lot safer with a lot more experienced drivers at the wheel.
Looking down then on the peloton, thank you very much to all of you for joining us for this junior women's road race. It's a little bit calm at the moment, apart from the odd crash and mechanical problem. This is a race of 86 kilometres today. Our first attack of the day is about to get underway here. Rider from Kazakhstan just going clear, just testing out the rest of the riders. If you'd like to tweet in this morning and get hold of us, at Rochelle Gilmore, Rochelle Commonwealth champion and former owner of the Wiggle High Five team, and at Ant McCrossan is where you can join us on Twitter. Oops, a problem here. Crash on the left-hand side of the road. One of the Russian riders is down. And a little bit stretched then as they go out of that left-hander. And this is the rider from Russia, Juliana Galumlina. Again, a chain coming off. We've got a lot of chain issues today with riders losing chains in crashes.
Well, I'm wondering how the riders had their bikes transported down to the start today, because it's very well possible that the mechanics here, we're going to see a replay of that crash. There we go. Just clipped the gutter on the inside there. Maybe clipped a pedal on the inside of the gutter. Not too bad. But in regards to the mechanicals, if all the mechanics did the work last night, they made sure the bikes were perfect. They would have checked them, double-checked them and triple-checked them. But then they may have been transported on trucks down to the start location of today, and that's where things can go wrong, because especially if riders are using electronic gears, if there's a little tap of the rear derailleur, it puts all of the gears out. So that's one thing about transporting these bikes. They can't really be touching anything.
Diana Bukanova is the rider who is on the attack right now. I think this is at Kirk Sandal Infant School. The children there have been helping creating a big piece of big school art on the joint school field, which has been organised by their teacher, Kerry-Ann Savage. Bukanova on the attack. Now we're just making our way through Throne. Do you know what Throne is famous for?
The throne.
It is. It's the birthplace of the toilet.
Well, Anthony McCrossan, you are a bundle of information here. Certainly knowing a lot about the local areas. Oh, we see there a little incident now. Riders trying to make their way through the convoy and a little bit of confusion.
That piece of land art we just saw, this is the school land art around Thorn. And we've got this land art from West Road Academy, put together by the staff there. And there might even, I don't know whether the kids are out, they're probably by the side of the road, but the West Road Academy, created on the West Road Primary School field, features a Yorkshire rose with some coloured words and pictures. And the one before that we saw was some land art from Trust 22, a charitable trust dedicated to supporting children, families in a local community in Thorn itself. Bukanova on the attack for Kazakhstan.
Well, yesterday when we saw the first few attacks go out by the team of Great Britain, it was very, very evident that the USA wanted to control the race, and there was a chance that that could have backfired in the end, because they had put everybody on the front to chase down one of the most significant first breaks of the day, and they put their hand up and said, we'll take responsibility today, we've got the strongest team, and they did, and they weren't able to pull it off in the end. But now that we have the first attacks going in the junior women's race, which nations are going to say, okay, we want to bring this back and we're going to control this race? So it's interesting when the first attack goes, because some nations will hesitate because they don't want to actually, they do want to control the race, but they might not want to just make that evident to everyone, because once you do that and you get together for the first big chase, then they look at you to do it every other time. They think you're going to do it. So there's a lot of tactics and mind games that goes into these kind of things. And a lot of the time, what I like about junior racing is that they don't have the radios and the communication, so they do have to think, and it's not a race that's dictated by somebody sitting back in the car, a race director. They really do have to adjust to different scenarios during the race.
Bukhanova on the attack for Kazakhstan, and now got 21 seconds as we see the Russian rider who had the crash, Yulia Galimalina, on her way back into the peloton. She's almost there now. She had quite a hard chase, but she is about to get past that all-important red car, and then she'll get into the peloton. You just caught a glimpse there of the motorbike with the guy in red. I've just seen the American women's team out training around the course. Corinne Rivera and the rest of the American squad just making their way around the course at the moment, because there is training time this morning.
Yes, and that might be another reason that we've got the women coming from out of town in the junior race, and we've got the elite riders having a training session. A lot of the road-specific riders for the elite races haven't come into the UK until the last couple of days, so looking for every opportunity they can to check out the course. And the American team of the elite women we just saw go past. A lot of pressure on the shoulders of Corinne Rivera. They're saying that it's the strongest team that they've had in a long time. The course suits her. She's won Tour of Flanders before. And, you know, for me, she hasn't had the best season, that's for sure. She's had a dominating season last year and the year before, but this year a very quiet year for Corinne Rivera. But she has confidence that she's coming into this World Championship with a really good chance of taking the title. But back to the junior race, this is a strong attack from the rider from Kazakhstan.
Bukhanova opening up an advantage of 21 seconds on these long straight roads on the run down to Harrogate. This race now going past the River Don. For the next 4.5 kilometres, the riders will run parallel to the River Don, which flows 70 miles from the Pennines all the way through the Don Valley via Sheffield, Rotherham and Doncaster, and joins the River Ouse when we get down to Goole.
Well, if you just joined us for the coverage, this race for the junior women is relatively flat today. We're not going to see the climbs, the little rises in the race make a huge difference. Probably one of the best climbers on paper, and the favourite for the race being Jastrab from America. But Ellie Backstead's one of the big favourites from the British team.
There's some other big names, isn't there, that you and I have kind of been looking at over the last few days who could be possible winners. Agil Gariva we've mentioned, who
the winner in
the time trial. Then you look at the American team and you've got Jastrab, but you've also got the rider who was 7th in the time trial, Zoe Topper, who's another possible winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got all the Dutch riders, so they've got strength in numbers. They've got the most difficult names to pronounce, but if we stick just to the surnames for now. I have had a little bit of education last night from Jose Bean, one of the sports commentators for both women's and men's cycling, and perfect pronunciation of Dutch names, but I can't even copy them and repeat them. But Plumers and Gerrits, Roygen, probably the favourite from the Dutch. Oh, Anne Roy. She was the one that was picked out. She's had some great results this year and a good rider across cyclocross and mountain bike. She's been a triathlete as well. So Van Anrooy will be one to look out in the Dutch team.
And then when we look through other squads, you've got Lucy Meyerhofer of Germany, who's a pretty useful road rider as well. And then the Italians are strong too.
Well, the Italians always come together at the World Championships. They really lift. So they don't race too much outside of Italy because there's a great Italian junior road structure and races that they can do there. So they're not a nationality that races too much internationally. But when they come together and put that Italian national jersey on, I've witnessed the atmosphere in an Italian team hotel many, many times. And it's, you know, as we said, they're very excited Italians, and they come together and they lift the morale in the World Championships, and the senior athletes really do connect and communicate with the junior athletes and get them into the right frame of mind. So I think we'll see a strong race from the Italians. Sweden, Wilma Olsen, very good chance here as well. So there's a few riders that without really, really strong support, I mean, Wilma Olsen's got Emmy Johansson to look up to and was somebody she admired, and now the race is really getting underway, and it's Great Britain, like we saw yesterday in the junior men's race, that go on the first dangerous attacks.
Yeah, they've decided that they don't want the Kazakhstan rider to get any more of a distance. Bukhanova has got 32 seconds, and Great Britain don't like this at all, so they've decided that it's time to stretch this peloton out for the first time. A number of riders have just rejoined this peloton, and if they are right at the back, this sudden acceleration when you've been really calm for a long time can really hurt, can't it? Because you go from your heart rate, oh, I think there was almost a crash, a bit of a hold up on the right-hand side. They didn't crash, but there was a sudden slowing down on the right-hand side of the peloton. Your heart rate suddenly goes from being really calm around 80 beats, 90 beats a minute to 140 in a sudden acceleration.
Yeah, and look, if these accelerations were to continue on and it was to be strung out for a long time, it can really hurt you and do some damage. So it's important to just keep some pressure on the legs. And you'll see some riders either drop off the back just to keep some pressure on the legs or move out to the side. If the peloton's moving too slowly, there's certain riders that don't really want to get too relaxed. We see the Belgium team in there. They've got a strong rider in Julie de Wilde, a very good chance for the World Championship. That would be a dream for the Belgium team. But she certainly has a great chance. She's only 16, so one of the youngest riders in the peloton. Of course, she's got Jolien Daughter to look up to in Belgium. She's been a hugely successful rider with a medal on the track at the Olympics in Rio.
Looking down on the peloton, Sam Blades is supporting Abby Smith. I think we mentioned her as a possible contender later. It just depends whether they've all been asked to ride for Eleanor Backstead, who is one of the out-and-out favourites for this race. So the Great Britain team may well have said we're all in for Eleanor Backstead, but if something happens, then they'll change the plan. That could be the situation. Remember when Lucy Garner won the world title twice, the team went all in to make sure that she did, and she delivered superbly. I think I'm right in saying I remember Eleanor Backstead leading her out. So Eleanor Barker, not Eleanor Backstead, leading her out into the final climb on her second occasion and took the victory. And Eleanor Barker also won the junior world title as a time trialist, went on to be Olympic champion on the track. As we take a look at this young rider who's riding really strongly at the moment, 38 seconds, rolling along at 43.5 kilometres an hour. If you're sitting at home, get your bike out, ride down the road and see if you can just even get up to 43 kilometres an hour. Meanwhile, she's rolling along looking very comfortable, very composed. 42k an hour, 40 seconds the advantage. She looks superb.
Yeah, she does look absolutely fantastic at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how long. This is race is not too long. They've only got 69 kilometres to go, so I don't think they'll let riders get too far away. And as we saw from the British riders there, they only let the break go out to 30 seconds before they had a little attack to try and speed things up. And now they want somebody else to have a go. They don't want to be seen as the nation that's going to chase everything and take on all the responsibilities. So whilst they would feel more comfortable bringing that back closer, they've just disappeared a little bit and hoping that one of the other nations will see the threat here and keep it in check.
Looking at the front of the peloton, Denmark always strong in junior women's racing. 48 seconds now her lead. A couple of questions for you, Rochelle, from different people. Keith has messaged in and said, how come pro riders don't run on these liquid tubeless tyres?
Well, it's a good question. I think they're becoming more and more popular. They're certainly more popular in social cycling and sportive cycling now, but it seems that trends are changing all the time. I can mostly just speak for women's cycling. They've been convinced, a lot of them, that clinchers are actually a faster option with a tube inside. I guess tubeless would be better, but they don't have, it's not really a safe option yet to fill them up with the liquid and hope that that stays.
Okay.
It seems in theory to be a really good option, and why haven't they used it? Well, they definitely would have trialled it, but I don't think the tyres hold. They can't afford to have a slow leak and go from 120 psi down to 90 psi if they want the higher pressures. So I think a wheel change and the time that it takes to do that wheel change might be a safer bet at this stage. But I think the technology for tubeless will definitely be the way of the future, because it's, I mean, having a tube and a tyre, even if it's faster than what we call a tubular or a single, it's not practical. So tubeless is the way to go, and I hope that the manufacturers have to keep up as well. I know a lot of the women's pro cycling teams were supplied wheels that were tubulars, where you glue the tyres on, and wanting to go to tubeless meant that they'd need a new rim. So they'd need all their wheels to be replaced, and most teams use their wheels for 1 or 2 years, their race wheels.
Remember, Alexander Kristoff rode tubeless tyres in the Paris-Roubaix. He decided that was the setup he was going to use, and he had 3 punctures, I think, in the Paris-Roubaix, and he said, look, it was a decision I made. I thought it was going to be the way to go. For some reason, it didn't work for me in Paris-Roubaix, but the technology is developing all the time. He wanted to show that it was possible, but it didn't really work.
Yeah, I think when it is more mainstream and the manufacturers have really nailed the technology of the tubeless and the sealant as well, that it'll become more popular. For the moment, I'd say the majority of elite female athletes are still using tubular, which is a lot of gluing and a lot of work for the mechanics. Constantly, nearly after every race, they replace the tubulars on every single wheel of the team. So when you go to a race of 6 athletes, you would have at least 15, 16 sets of wheels. So to have anywhere from 32 to 40 wheels in within a team and have to replace the tubulars every single race, it's a big job.
What, so the mechanics will replace the tubular tyres every single race?
Well, at the highest level, yes. At the highest level, if you have, you can imagine if you race 160 kilometres, you're bound to have splits in the tyres.
Okay.
And if a mechanic spins the tyre and checks it and there's not one single split in the tyre, okay, they'll leave it. But that's very unlikely after a 150 kilometre race in the Netherlands.
Looks like I'm hearing there's a crash at the back of the peloton. There's a lot of riders down. One of them down, Anna Shackley. Also down, the Canadian rider over there on the far side, Camille Primo. One of the Spanish riders is down. One of the riders from the USA. Mexico also, one rider down, Yareli Acevedo. And one of the American riders is also down. And that looks to me like it is Zoe Topper. So Zoe Topper is down, and the Spanish rider is the most injured at the moment. That looked like a very painful crash.
We'll see if we can get a replay here. The Spanish rider might have been one of the first to go down. We can just see there, if you look at the big rider, in the red and the yellow. No, it came from the other side, actually.
Oof, one of the first riders down effect there.
And look at this, Anna Shackley. She's got her bike caught up in the Mexican's bike there, the handlebars right through the wheels with the gear lever and everything, and it took such a long time for Anna's bike to get untangled and to get her back on the way, but the doctors are there very quickly to assess and give their opinion and advice as to whether the rider should continue.
Yeah, the doctors are in the cars, in the convoy. They are carried very close to the back of the peloton itself. And these riders are looked after, and the Canadian rider says, yep, right, I'm okay. They check immediately to see whether there's a sign of any concussion, They check and make sure the rider is with it and will be safe to continue. They're always a bit upset, of course, after a big crash like that at speed. But once the doctor says they're okay, they will get back on the bike. The Spanish rider has hurt her hip. I think that's a bit more of a damaged left hip. This is Pug Fabregas of Spain. And the doctors are just checking that she can actually continue. The peloton after that crash is calmed right down. 33 seconds the lead for Diana Bukanova. And they're just now going to get going. Some of the teams, of course, will know that their teammates are in that crash. And Great Britain in particular will want Anna Shackley to be back in there to look after Eleanor Backstead and Abby Smith.
Absolutely. I don't think we'd see Great Britain on the attack right now. They would have caught a glimpse and communicated that Anna Shackley came down. Wait till she's back in the peloton and everybody knows that they're all there. But time to get some food on board for our breakaway rider.
Smashes the bar on the bars and gets it open. If you are wondering how to open some of these energy bars, that's how you do it.
Alternatively, a pair of scissors before you start.
Is that what you do?
Just cut the tops off before you start. So it's, you know, sometimes you can get really stuck. If you've got slippery fingers, it's hard to get those. Sometimes it's hard to get those packaging open. So before you go out on a ride, snip the tops off. Can't really do that with a gel because it gets a bit messy in your back pocket.
And don't throw the wrappers anywhere in the grass. Put them in your pockets and put them somewhere in a bin when you get to the finish. Anna Shackley back into the peloton. The return of more riders. Thank you for joining us. This is the UCI Road World Championships from Yorkshire in Great Britain. This is a race of 86 kilometres, the junior women's race. 95 riders taken to the race start. Simple. The first rider across the line is the world champion. And in terms of world titles, if you're just joining us for the first time, the rider pulls on the rainbow band jersey to signify they are the world champion, and they are allowed to wear that if they're a junior in all junior races for the next 12 months. Number 60, I think, has retired from the race. So we've just heard on Radio Tour, Pug de Fabregas of Spain has retired, unfortunately, from this junior world title. Just had a message from Rachel Hederman, who a British rider who is now the team director of Team Tibco in the United States of America. She rode numerous world championships as a British rider, and she said that Team Tibco have been riding on Maxxis tubeless tyres for the entire year, and they have been really happy with the performance. That's
fantastic. That's as I say, I think if a team has a sponsor who's prepared to supply them with, and they're confident with their materials, it's there's no reason why it can't be the way of the future, and it won't be the way of the future.
This gap is kind of maintained, 28 seconds. Zoe Topper is coming back for the United States of America. She's a rider that Megan Jastrab will definitely need later. She's a superb time trialist, 7th in the World Championships a few days ago. Nora Jenkasova of Slovakia is the rider who is coming back in. She's had 2 problems so far today. She had that mechanical problem at the start in the neutralise. She's had a crash, and now she's making her way back into the peloton. Some days you just don't have all the luck.
Well, Zoe Topper, she has a contract with the American team UHC, Rally UHC, as a junior. That's something we don't see so often, but it's not surprising, as they tend to really develop their junior riders really well. So she has a lot of experience. I think she's been around elite riders and great mentors and directors of the teams, and has a lot of experience. And she will be a very important support rider for Jastrab today, if that's the way it goes. She's also a strong contender.
Both of them have got a big opportunity. Both of them riding for Rally UHC. Megan Jastrab rides for that junior program as well. And it's a wonderful setup in the United States of America. They have the men's team and the women's team. Men's team's had riders like Brandon McNulty, who's now moving on to UAE Team Emirates. We'll see him ride in the men's under-23 road race this afternoon. Don't forget, we're going to bring you that too. Rob Hales is going to be with me this afternoon for the men's under-23 race. Kazakhstan rider is still off the front. The peloton is blocked as they all just ride across the road. There's no main animation
I think the peloton's quite relaxed because when it does get animated and an attack goes out, it comes down pretty quick, the time gap. So I don't think they're too nervous about this. And it does look like it's just naturally coming down anyway, which indicates that our breakaway rider from Kazakhstan might be tiring a little bit. So no real urgency, I think, from the peloton. I think they're quite relaxed about that.
The Spanish team in the red and yellow on the right-hand side. Great Britain in the white with the blue shorts. The German team in the white, black, red and yellow. Chile represented by a rider who spends her time riding in Australia. So you could say there is one rider from Australia sitting in this peloton at the moment. There she is in the middle of the picture. Got a lot of fans in Australia cheering her on this morning. Belgian over there on the right-hand side.
Quite surprised not more athletes go out in the winter to train in Australia, because it's a fantastic environment to be in, with so much cycling happening there in December and January if you want to jump into a crit race or something like that. But I know that long flight really does scare a lot of athletes. It can take, I know the first few times that you do it, you feel that it can take, you know, three days to a week to get over the flight itself, and then there's the time differences. Obviously, you don't get a lot of sleep when you travel that far across the world for the first week. And this is a replay of the Spanish rider who has abandoned the race now, so under the doctor's guidance. Hopefully, touch wood, no fractures there. It's a difficult one to come back from. Speaking from experience, a pelvis break, quite common actually in the peloton.
Let's hope she's okay. 29 seconds then. The New Zealand team in here, two riders, Ella Wiley and Stella Nightingale. I must just mention Stella Nightingale. I was sitting before one of the races yesterday having a cup of tea in one of the cafes, and her mum was sitting just on the next table, and she was telling me how much commitment it's taken for this young rider from New Zealand right across the other side of the globe to be qualified for the World Championships. She hasn't been home for 3 months. Her mum hadn't seen her for 3 months. She's been riding in Europe, Great Britain and in the United States of America to get enough racing in her legs to qualify for the World Championships. Her mum said, all I want to happen is for her to get safely round the course. But of course, Stella wants to win the World Championships. That's her dream. And it's incredible, the commitment of young riders, junior riders, who are having to travel all over the world just to qualify for a world title that they dream of riding.
Yeah, it's really difficult at such a young age, obviously in the final most important parts of your education as well. But it is manageable, and you see a lot of athletes tend to be quite focused on their studies as well, because, you know, they're disciplined and they understand that you only get out what you put in. So you see a lot of athletes travelling the world doing junior world championships and finishing their final studies as well. A lot of athletes choose to be distance educated now, or home educated. So I think the rider we saw, Zoe Topper, the American that may be supporting the favourite Jastrab, that she's homeschooled, but next year she's going back to the USA, so we won't see her racing in Europe like we did this year next year, as she'll be going to college in Tennessee, which is a college that really does specifically look after their athletes and develop the sporting side as well. So a lot of athletes trying to mix both their education and racing at world level, the World Championships.
Slovakian rider with a bit of blood pouring down the knee. As you can see, she's back up there at the front of the race now, so she's safely back in the peloton. These young riders are made of tough stuff. There's just blood pouring down the knee, but she's thinking, I don't care, I need to finish this World Championship.
It's amazing what you don't feel when the adrenaline's pumping after a crash in cycling. A lot of the viewers, I'm sure you've all experienced it at some time, where you don't tend to feel so much after a crash. It's an hour or so later when you start to think, oh, actually that hurts a little bit more than I thought it did. So It's quite a common thing, and that's what's good about having the doctors there, because even the first reaction is your adrenaline's pumping and no, it's okay, I'll get back on. And what an amazing thing we saw last year with Annemiek van Vleuten in the World Championship. She was riding in support of, well, at the start of the race she may have been one of the favourites, but she had a crash early on in the race, remounted the bike and finished, I think, over 90 kilometres of racing for Anna van der Breggen, who went on to win the championship, with broken bones. A serious knee injury that took her a while to come back from.
But it's incredible that you can get back on with the adrenaline pumping and get to the finish.
Yeah, it's amazing what the body allows you to do.
We're heading now towards a place called Eggborough. We'll be going past a power station that dominates the skyline. It was a coal-fired power station that was closed in 2018. There it is, right on cue. The Eggborough power station now closed. We don't really want to be using too much coal power in the world these days, and Greta Thunberg certainly wouldn't agree with it. Looking at alternative forms of making sure that this planet doesn't continue to warm. But this power station dominated the skyline for numerous years, and there are plans now to replace it with a cleaner form of energy. Past Eggborough then, the power station. Those towers, I'm sure, will be removed at some point. There's all the films on YouTube you can see where you see the big towers blown up and they then come toppling down. It's always a pretty incredible thing to see. 41 seconds now. This rider's been out in the lead for a long time. She went on the attack quite early. But as we see now, this rider from Canada coming back. This is Adele Degan. I think this was the rider who had also been held up by the crash, and her teammate is making her way back as well. So hopefully the Canadian team will all be back together. I think she's waiting for her teammate to come back. She's just talking to the race doctor, actually. In fact, this is one of the riders who crashed. You can see she's got blood pouring down the right knee. And the white cars are the cars that signify the race doctor. They're always there. They usually, although probably not good in this weather, usually have sun convertibles so that they can get to the rider easily. But she's just checking that she's okay. And the doctor's asked her to go to the left-hand side of the road so he can lean out the window, he can clean up the wound and just make sure she's all right. And that's a skill in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. The race doctors are very experienced, and they have to be, because they are the ones that are ultimately responsible when they make a call. They want to have the rider on the other side. You can see now the Canadian rider's moved from the right side of the car to the left because the doctor wants to get a real good look at the abrasion on her knee, and he will decide whether it's too deep and we need to pull you out. It has happened to me in the past where I was looking at the race doctor through the window saying, no way, I don't feel it, it's fine, no way, I want to continue. He's saying, listen, you have to stop. And to the point where they were even pulling the car in front of me saying, listen, you really need to stop and pull out of the race. But as we said, the adrenaline's pumping, you don't feel anything. But it's great that the UCI have looked at all the aspects of safety in this race, and they really have said they want to make sure that nothing drastically goes wrong here at the World Championships. So they are taking every precaution possible when it comes to rider safety.
All the school kids out enjoying the racing, as always, on this Friday morning, and still our lone leader, Bukanova. Her gap came right down to under 20 seconds. Now we're back out at 47 seconds. There's been a few questions on Twitter from Jamie and others about the neutral service and how many cars we have, and do they have the neutral service motorbikes in the peloton? It's
a good question, because yesterday we saw that very unfortunate situation with Dario Gomez of Colombia, where he was standing on the side of the road waiting for a wheel change, and a number of cars went past him. We didn't see on the coverage if a neutral spares car had already passed him before he'd indicated that he needed a spare wheel, but they may have thought he just climbed off and he was pulling out of the race. But it was such an unfortunate situation. So in general, I'm not sure about the specific numbers. Maybe you know, Anthony, I don't know, neutral spares, but there should be enough in the race to cover every situation.
Certainly they're staying in my hotel, the Shimano team. There's loads of them.
Yeah, we see there's absolutely loads of
The Blue
them.
Brigade. I won't call them Smurfs, but I think when I walk in last night into the hotel lobby and there's just blue. They all wear these blue Shimano jackets. They look great, and they're a great bunch of guys, and they care passionately about making sure, as we see the Shimano car there on the left, they care so much about making sure a rider is okay. I know that they wouldn't have left that rider at the side of the road.
No, and they feel terribly bad about it. I mean, we had a chat with some of the organisation afterwards asking what had happened, and nobody really knew. It was just one of those situations where how it was missed, it might have been a chaotic moment. Oh, another crash. We just caught on the edge there. That was the Italian who fell first. Some frustrated riders there.
That was a big, big crash. A lot of riders hitting the deck. Bit of panic as riders try to get back on. Yet again from the United States of America, Zoe Topper is down, and this time Lucy O'Donnell of Ireland. There's a few broken bikes here. That was a very, very big crash. Also going down was Anastasia Leinik, and problems here for number 37, Natalie Midsveen. Zoe Topper not panicking, just looking for another bike.
As we said, she is riding in the UHC team in America, and she does have a lot of experience, and we've seen her stay quite relaxed and knows what to do. So she knows she needs a spare bike, and she's got one there.
Let's take a look, Rochelle, what happens here?
Just right from the middle of the peloton where it started. So we saw the Italian fling off the side there, but she was one of the last riders to be affected. A very heavy fall for the Norwegian. She has hit the deck very, very hard.
And she also had the Slovakian rider over the top of her there. Still problems here for Tasia Susnik, the Mexican rider, just trying to get a new wheel in on the bike. Mechanic's very, very busy. Yep, she's got a little bit of work to do to get back. And this is Anne Eastland as well from Norway. She's hit the deck. And they're just checking the Norwegian rider, as you said, who had a very bad crash, is okay. The doctor is checking everything.
I think the doctor might have identified that she went down very, very hard in the middle of the peloton, and checking for concussion and any signs of concussion, and they will not let a rider continue. A cracked helmet.
Norway hit here because they've got 4 riders in the race, and 2 of them are left here at the side of the road. And daughter Eastland, she's about to get another bike. The peloton, meanwhile, have kind of gone into action. This is not going to be an easy chase back for any of the riders who are out the back. They've decided that, and you know, Rochelle, the pace is calm right now, and when it's calm, mistakes get made. When you're flat out, you make less mistakes.
People often ask why in junior racing they see more crashes, and it's not, I mean, there's so many things that do come into play here, and one of them, of course, is the difference in experience levels, and that in itself is quite a dangerous situation, because some riders might be very confident to touch elbows and to squeeze past the rider, while that rider would be very nervous. If they come from smaller nations where they don't ride in such compact bunches, and it only takes one rider to overreact and wobble and take out the whole peloton, as we've seen a couple of times already in this junior race. So they're all on restricted gears here in the junior race, which is interesting because some of the riders who are second-year juniors are allowed to ride in elite races, but they need to stay on their junior gears. Those riders who are in the first-year juniors, they are not allowed to join the elite races. So as we saw earlier this year, Eleanor Backstead from Great Britain, she raced in the Tour of Yorkshire to get a taste of elite competition, which I think was a very smart move, just to get, and she did quite well actually.
She was up at the front in some of the key moves, made her way into the different groups. She was actually attacking on, I think, the second day of the Tour de Yorkshire, which was the hard day as well, showing her calibre for the future. This rider now 37 seconds. Just hello to a few of you on Twitter. Thanks for messaging at Rochelle Gilmore, at Ant McCrossan, and don't forget to follow at UCI_cycling. David, Rachel and Fraser, thanks very much for watching. Rob Hamilton is supporting Ella Wiley. Her brother Aaron is, of course, a world junior medalist on the track in the team pursuit, has Katie Klaus has come back to take Zoe Topper back into the peloton. They realise they need Zoe in there. As you can see on the left-hand side, the shorts are ripped. She's got no numbers left on her jersey hardly. They're desperately trying to get back into a convoy, so at least they've got a chance to get back into this race. And at the moment, the race is a bit on. Daniela Campos is also here for Portugal.
Well, the pace in the peloton is really on now, so this is very interesting that we've got an American on the front while 2 Americans are off the back. America well positioned, but this is the lack of communication here, because they've got 2 riders trying to chase back while they're forcing the pressure on the front of the peloton. And this is why I love junior racing, Anthony, because it's so unpredictable. And,
it is unpredictable. Number 93 there from Brazil, Julia Leite, is suffering a little bit. So the American team is trying to help with a convoy to get these riders back into the group.
Well, we saw Katie Klaus was really there to help Topper, because Topper will be one of the favourites in the race. Possibly need to get her back to help the race favourite Jastrab. But Katie Klaus has got that bike handling skill. She looks pretty comfortable just using the back of the car there. They may be called off the back of that car because they can use the convoy, but yeah, that did a little bit of damage to Topper there. So Katie Klaus just sitting on the back of that car. She will be called off. She won't be able to sit there for much longer. But Topper has felt the wind, and it's very difficult. If you're the second rider, a rider sitting on the back of the car and you behind the rider, it's so much more difficult than being on the back of the car. So that's why we saw Topper just drop off there. But Katie Klaus is a cyclocross racer, a real star in the United States at 16.
There on the right-hand side, Rochelle, we've had lots of questions on Twitter about how many cars, how many bikes does Shimano have in the convoy, and there's the motorbike. So on these narrow roads, they have the motorbike as close to the front as possible. And in the convoy, I've just checked with Shimano how many cars, how many bikes are in every race convoy. There are 4 neutral service cars and 2 neutral service bikes looking after all these riders.
Yeah, we see the neutral service bike there just behind the breakaway rider. He'll probably pull out and drop back in a moment. There's only 8 seconds between the rider from Kazakhstan, who's done a fantastic job, a strong rider out in front. Here we see Klaus still on the back of the car. Katie Klaus, she's 18 years old. And her brother's also a cyclist, so a family of cyclists. But she was actually helping her teammate, Zoe Topper, come back, but Topper had to drop off whilst America were the team that were chasing on the front. So this is an interesting situation that we probably wouldn't see in the pro peloton with race radios and a lot of communication, because Zoe Topper may now be out of the race.
And the same goes that Kazakhstan are on the attack, and Uliana Sokorobrik of Kazakhstan is now going out the back.
Yeah, we'll now see this come back together. So very interesting situation there, where the USA chose to chase down the Kazakhstan rider at a moment where 2 of their teammates, very strong riders in Katie Klaus and Zoe Topper, were in difficulties at the back of the peloton after a crash trying to come back. So once they start to get a bit of communication and Katie Klaus gets back into the peloton, she'll let the entire team know that we've lost Topper there in that moment of chaos. She may get back to the peloton, depends how the racing goes from here on in, but the big favourite is Jastrab, and I have a feeling she may have been one of those riders driving the pace at the front.
I think she is. Katie Klaus here from the United States of America. This pace is not calming down now. We're 50 kilometres from the finish. And Katie Klaus just looking slowly but surely, though. The convoy is closing up. The pace has calmed down a little bit, and she may well get herself back in to the race. Just looking across France now for the first time. Appear at the front. They've got Jocelyn Corbeneau, Leah Courinier, Amandine Fouquenet, Cédrine Kerbol, and Kristina Nenadovic is the French team. I think really they've got a chance with Leah Courinier. She could be the French rider to bring home the goods for the French squad today. Coming back in, the Kazakhstan rider, Uliana Sukubrik. She's now made her way back into the peloton. The Colombian rider is Carolina Vargas there on the left-hand side. Poland represented by number 33 over on the left, Carolina Stiepen. Oh, another crash. And a New Zealand rider has a soft landing. That's Stella Nightingale, who I was talking about just a moment ago. The chain comes off, so she's just got to get back in. Over on the right-hand side was Laurie Millette of Canada. Just a touch of wheels, and they flicked over into the ditch at the side of the road.
Yeah, well, it's been a fully packed animated race, hasn't it, this junior women's race? There has been a lot of touchdowns and chasing back through the vehicles, attacks off the front. So with 49 kilometres to go, there hasn't been too much relaxing in the peloton, but the strong riders and strong nations we're yet to see really go on the attack. And it is unfortunate that we don't have any climbs in this course for the junior women, because there are some good climbers in this peloton for the junior women. Italy has Vitello, who won't be able to use her climbing strengths without, you know, a world championship here with climbs. But the Italians also have Alessio, who is very, very strong. And that comes from Giorgia Bronzini. She says that they've got a strong team, they can come together, but it's not an ideal course for the Italians.
It's been an interesting week, the way Yorkshire have designed their courses. They've tried to show Yorkshire in all its different forms. So you've had the short, sharp climbs. You've had this finishing circuit, which doesn't have really steep climbs, 11%, not the 14, 15% we saw yesterday. And then we see the flat roads of the roads from Doncaster, which is more southern, going back into Harrogate. But it's good to be able to see the county in all different ways.
Yeah, it's fantastic that this World Championship's been organised the way that it has, to have the starts in different places, just to show off a lot of the different areas. And one of my biggest regrets, Anthony, is not bringing my bike this year.
I'm surprised, because normally
we have
on
this
a World
tradition.
Championship, we have a tradition where we go out and we ride at least one day, which is the training day. And also, you put everyone to shame normally at the World Championships, because you go out every single day.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I'm in actually pretty good condition, because I've just done an altitude block, but I've been training specifically for a challenge.
You're going to climb Everest?
Everest Base Camp. Everest
Okay.
a bit much. No, with no hiking history, I'll start with the base camp. So I left my bike at home to force myself to get out on foot a few days this week. And we just see now the riders that are trying to get back to the peloton. And once they reach the convoy, the cars at the back of that peloton, they've got more of a chance to work their way through. So I think that's Katie Klaus, and we haven't seen if Topper Perez is going to make it back for the team of USA.
Katie Klaus is going to get back. Topper Perez is a little bit further back. We don't know if Stella Nightingale is in the convoy, but she's got a chance to come back. She just needed to get that chain on for New Zealand and make her way back into the peloton. 47 kilometres to go. Thank you for joining us. We are heading to Harrogate to decide this world title. The pace is still starting to ignite a little bit more. We started with 95 riders. We saw an attack from the Kazakhstan rider, Diana Bukhanova, but she has been caught now. The peloton is all together. You'll see a lot of action at the back of this race as riders try to rejoin after the various crashes we have seen. These are all junior riders. They were born in 2001 and 2002. And if you weren't born in those years, you can't take part in the racing. This is Maeve Gallagher, who's covered in mud after landing there in the ditch at the side of the road. She's got cuts on the arms and everything. But these young junior women are tough customers.
Yeah, they certainly are. We've got some tough riders in here. 46.8 kilometres to go. Just to talk through your favourite nations and favourite riders again, you've got Ellie Backstead from Great Britain, Jastrab from the USA, Gariba from Russia, who won the time trial, and then other outside chances, well, Swedish rider Olsen, she's got a very good chance of winning here today.
Tim Hayter's just messaged me to say just about your tubeless conversation. Leo's been riding on tubeless tyres all season, rode tubeless yesterday in the junior road race, and it's been a revelation.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go home and get myself some tubeless rims and tyres.
We're seeing the arrival then of Katie Klaus. She's coming back into the peloton for the United States of America. Zoe Topper, we're not sure, is making her way back yet, but the riders now have calmed down. 46 kilometres to go. We are heading to the town of Monkfreeston. We've just gone through Birkin, past the village church of St Mary's, a Grade 1 listed building dating from 1150, and we're going down to Monkfreeston now.
Another crash. The Belgian rider, they had a favourite in Julie de Wilde. Let's hope it's not her, number 25. And it's not, but one of her teammates, Dina Scavone, has come down. So,
soft landing.
Wempe Gerets, one of the strongest Dutch riders, 2 Dutch riders are down. They had one of the clear favourites in Van and Roy.
This is Femke Gerets. She's picking bits of bracken and stuff out of her tyres. And this rider here is Ilse Pluimers.
Ilse Pluimers, she would have you know, 2 very strong riders. All the riders in the Dutch team are super strong. Standout favourite being Van and Roy, who's 17.
Here's the replay of the crash, a flick and a touch as riders went into the hedgerow at the side of the road.
This is, I think, what's happening here in the junior women's race is just that difference in lack of confidence. Ability, I'm not so sure, but just the reactions to being bumped in the peloton. Usually, you can see there is some disc brakes here in the junior women's race on the rider, the Belgian rider there.
These riders then have got to make their way back into the peloton. The 2 New Zealanders also getting held up. Stella Nightingale and Ella Wiley are the 2 New Zealanders who were just held up by that crash, but they should be up and running. Katia Martinez is the rider in red from Mexico. And over on the left-hand side, 2 more riders trying to get back in there from Slovenia. And on the left was Meta Mukuc, who's been out the back a couple of times because of crashes. As we are now making our way into Monkfreeston. The 12th century Monkfreeston Hall is set back from the road. This is originally on land set aside as a deer park by the Bishop of York. And a zoo was established here at the hall, which included animals and birds from all around the world. The main attraction being a boating lake with some nice bridges and a replica, weirdly, of the famous bridge in Lucerne in Switzerland. Must have liked it there, the Bishop of York. 44 kilometres to go.
And it's all happening. I have no doubt these 2 Dutch riders will get back. They'll have a lot of experience in swapping off turns, chasing. They like to get out in breakaways in the Netherlands, and the crosswinds won't faze them. They know the feeling of rough roads, but these roads here in Yorkshire, they're a little bit different.
Canadian rider by the doctor's car on the left-hand side of the road. Again, the doctor must be the busiest they have been over this entire race. But they're being careful. It looked to me like the Canadian rider had stopped and the doctor was just checking they're actually okay. And I think it was one of the Canadian riders who was in that crash a little while ago. Just being sure, just making sure that if a rider isn't feeling sick or feeling unwell, that they stop them and they make sure they're okay. Particularly at this age, because the adrenaline, the experience is not necessarily there. They want desperately to win and finish this world title, but the doctors will, as you've said many times today, just check that they are safe to continue. An attack now at the front. 4 riders going clear, and this looks like an important one because Megan Jastrab is now going on the attack, the rider who is the race favourite. Also in this move is the rider from Chile, Catalina Soto Campos. Belgium are represented, but this is a big move now by Megan Jastrab.
Yeah, I mean, the Dutch are on the front and hesitating, which is a dangerous thing for them to be doing. If this is Olsen from Sweden, also one of the favourites, but we'll pick that name up in a moment. And Julie de Wilde from Belgium is also one of the big favourites, so we'll pick up the names of the Swede and the Belgium in one moment. But it's the Russians with the favourite in Gariva who are doing the chasing. USA just there covering the moves. They'll be happy with this one, so they'll just want to keep doing what the Americans did yesterday and control the peloton. The Dutch, they're the ones that have to do the work, and the Italians.
This is a bit of a move. I'm thinking this might be the Swedish rider Wilma Olausson, who's also on the attack, but Megan Jastrab going very early, a little bit like her teammate did yesterday, and I guess just giving a little bit of a warning shot to everybody. This is a race, and this race is now on. Peloton all together. It's a big reaction. I'm very surprised that the British team weren't at the front, so maybe they're saying we're just going to wait.
Yeah, well, look, if they're all surrounding Ellie Baxter and they've made a decision to support her today, they'll be confident that they could put her into a winning position. Even if they miss the move, they could bring her across to it, but there were certainly some strong favourites in that breakaway. It was dangerous. You saw Jastrab, Julie de Wilde and Olausson from Sweden, the favourites. They're all at the front there. Now Great Britain moves into the mix as well and senses the danger. The French riders are there, Germans as well, and it's the Dutch that we expected to be a little bit more dominant so far in this race.
Jastrab moves over to the left-hand side. She's the rider in the colours of the United States of America, blue, white and red, with the orange and white helmet there on the left-hand side. She won the Trofeo Binda at the beginning of the season in Citilio in Italy, and she looks really strong again today. I've heard from the American team this morning. They say that they are riding for Megan Jastrab. She's their favourite. They've already taken the gold medal in the women's time trial, the gold medal in the men's junior race, and now they're looking for another one with Megan Jastrab. The Americans having their best world championships for many, many years.
They've certainly got some strength in the junior ranks, and you can see today they're already controlling this race nicely. The team from the USA of Jastrab. They did have a very dangerous moment where they had a couple of riders dropped. We haven't really heard if Topper has made it back to the peloton.
I haven't seen a return.
Yeah, we should assume that she has, although when her teammate Katie was on the back of that car, she just dropped the wheel like we're calling it a day, but we haven't seen if she got back into the peloton at the front of the race now with 41 kilometres to go. We're getting into the business end.
Through the feed zone now. On the soigneurs there at the side of the road with the bottles. This is a very difficult thing to do. It's like everyone going through a supermarket aisle trying to grab some food and drink.
Ooh, a crash in the feed zone. That is not good. The Americans haven't had the best of luck today. That was a hard fall.
That was a big, big crash in the feed by Ava Sykes.
Lainert, no?
Ava Sykes is down.
Well, that was a really heavy fall on the elbow there. You saw she grabbed it straight away, and we could see it was very chaotic. A lot of bottles were going flying, riders trying to reach out. They don't have as much experience to drop back to the car and grab bottles.
Megan Jastrab got through.
Oh, there we go.
She hit the Polish soigneur, who, to be fair, didn't do what she should have done.
That's the thing too, you need to have experience in giving a bottle, and it's so easy to keep stepping out in the peloton to reach your rider who has their hand out, but very dangerous situation.
The Polish soigneur,
she wants her bike back,
stood exactly where she was and not run to the side of the road, because riders are coming in and they will go round fixed obstacles, but if you move, then they'll hit you. And that's exactly what happened then. The Polish soigneur just completely moved across the road at the wrong time. Great Britain now at the front. I think they're starting to get a little bit concerned about the number of crashes there have been. Eleanor Backstead now moves to the front. She is the race favourite for Great Britain. She's already won 2 bronze medals in the World Championships in an individual time trial. Her dad is the winner of Paris-Roubaix, Magnus Backstead. Her mum, Megan, is a tremendous sprinter for Wales on the track. And she is, without doubt, one of the top 3 favourites in this race. Now we make our way into the next little town. This, I think, is Sherburn in Elmet, which could have been the capital of England. The first King of England, King Athelstan, had his palace here in Sherburn in Elmet. Imagine if it has been the capital of England and not London. What a wonderful place to be, up here in the north of England. But that's 39.5 kilometres to go. A big town, Sherburn in Elmet. Peloton thinning down, but thinning down really because of all the crashes at the back, not because of the action at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of chaos at the back of the peloton. I'm sure there's a lot of riders frantically trying to get back into the peloton as we see all the favourites just moving to the front. One of the riders we haven't mentioned, probably due to the fact that her name is very difficult to pronounce, the rider from Lithuania. She will be one to watch today as well, with a very handy little sprint on her. If she's there at the finish, Akvil Gerreite, she will be one to watch out for.
The Dutch have got a problem here, because Femke Gerrits and Ilse Pluimers, the two riders here, are going out of the back. They are not in the race convoy at this moment in time, as we see the arrival of Ava Sykes. Well done to her. She's already got herself up to the group. She's trying to come back after that crash, and she was sat on the ground for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's as you said, they're tough cookies, getting straight back up and wanting to get out there, and doctors wanting to analyse them while they just want to get back into the action. And a lot of these riders are support riders. We saw the American, she'll be riding for Jastrab today, and for the Netherlands, Pluimers had a pretty heavy fall too, only 17, but she could be riding in service of the Dutch favourite Van and Roy today.
Three riders safely coming back through the team car convoy. There's a team car for every team. Another two riders rejoining now, one from Colombia, one from Poland. And then a little bit further back will be the group containing the Dutch and also Ava Sykes. A few riders just feeling the pace. Let's go all the way back. We'll see how far away they are. I don't think they're too far back.
Interestingly, as we saw all of those team cars there was not a lot of team cars that had a full team of spare bikes on the roof. So for the juniors, a lot of them will be racing without a spare bike on the roof today, purely due to the cost and expense of travelling and having a second spare bike.
These riders working their way through. One rider with disc brakes on the back. More school kids by the side of the road, cheering on the riders. They look like they're having a good time. Yeah. Ireland now at the front, represented. Great Britain also represented at the front. Lithuania with one rider there in the yellow and green. Chile, the Chilean rider, has been at the front of this race for the entire distance so far. Wonderful to see the way Catalina Soto Campos is riding. Megan Jastrab over on the left-hand side, staying out of difficulty. 37 kilometres to go. We're heading now towards Barkston Ash. And then we'll work our way down to Harrogate. There is no circuit today for those who've been watching the World Championships all week. Catalina Soto Campos is Junior National Road and Time Trial Champion. And she's been also spending her time at the World Cycling Centre, thanks to Caroline Stewart for little bits of information as we go through Barkston Ash. The name comes from the large ash tree that stands in the middle of the triangle in the middle of the town. It's said to mark the exact centre of Yorkshire. And according to legend, anyone who spits at the tree is destined to be struck by lightning a year and a day exactly later. More kids at the side of the road. 36 kilometres to go. Still no major breakaways for a little while. We've only had the break of Diana Bukhanova of Kazakhstan. This looks to me like it may well be the last few little climbs on the run into Harrogate, which are going to be the deciding moment in this race. If not, the sprint up the final straight, up here into Parliament Street to the race finish, where we're starting to get a nice crowd building. A big giant screen just across the road from Rochelle and I. And everyone is enjoying the atmosphere on this Friday morning. This afternoon, we're going to have the under-23 men's Road Race Championship.
Well,
36k to go.
Been a question come in on our social media about why there's not an under-23 women's division, and I think we can say that maybe from the fantastic results we saw from the riders that we say are exceptional, like Mariana Vos, Diana Zaludi, Catherine Marcel, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Amelia Deirdrichsen, who won Junior World Championships and went on very quickly to win Elite World Championships. So there's always been that question of whether there is a need for a category in the under-23s, but there was breaking news in a press release this morning about a Dutch UCI team that has specifically invented themselves to support under-23 women. So it's an under-23 UCI team, but there is no under-23 category, so they'll be racing in the elite category. But they have a junior team, a club team and a UCI team. So Watersley is a sports park that are supporting the education of riders, mixing in a sports career as well, and they've just funded and supported women's specific junior club and UCI level teams that will specifically develop under 23 women.
And the founder of that team is Service Carnarvon, who won the Paris-Roubaix, also a team director of Team Ineos. He's been in the team car guiding some major races, but they've signed some good riders already.
Yeah, they've signed a really good mix of riders. They have 2 British riders that have joined the UCI women's under 23 team.
Yeah, Rona Callender and Emily Wadsworth have been signed by that team already.
Yeah, so I think it's a great concept to support the under-23 development. I'd personally like to see them put in 2 elite stars that the junior riders or under-23 riders can aspire and develop under, and they'll have a mentor in the team and somebody that they can ride for, because I think it's very important to have a strong rider that has a chance to get a result that you can actually work for in a race and learn that trade before moving on to the elite level pro teams.
This group of riders still trying to get back. They're a long way out the back of the convoy at this moment in time, but Ava Sykes has recovered enough from that crash to try and contribute now to bringing these riders back to the rear of the peloton. It's a good moment to come back. As you can see, when you watch bike racing, if you're watching for the first time, if the pack is bunched like this, it's not flat out. It's fast, but it's not flat out. When you see the peloton go into one long line, that's when the pace is absolutely flat out. And when you see gaps between the riders in the line, that means that the pressure is on as far as it can possibly be until the line of riders crack. This is the peloton, the bunch of riders who are all riding together. They ride very, very close to each other, don't they, Rochelle? It's really tight and compact. Yeah,
well, given that this race is relatively flat, we can say it's nearly dead flat, isn't it? We will see one little rise very shortly, but I would have expected it to be lined out, as you were just describing, a lot more often today, especially with riders like the Dutch team. They do have Van and Roy, who's one of the favourites, but I thought they would have wanted to make it a little bit harder. We've seen in the sprint races, in the juniors, in the Healthy Aging Tour, which is a fantastic race that supports the juniors, that Ellie Backstead and the favourite Jastrab have been fighting it out. I love the way that Magnus Backstead was so proud of Ellie's bronze medal this year, much more so than last year, because he said she went in with expectations and pressure this year. So the first time she was on the podium at the World Championship, it was a great surprise to everybody and they were super proud of her. But this year, to be able to go into a race with a lot of pressure and still end on the podium, he was very, very proud of that. So, you know, today I think we've been trying to play her chances down as favourite a little bit, but I mean, in all reality, she is a favourite for today. She has a very good chance of winning the World Championship with a home crowd. She looks quite comfortable out there. She's got plenty of team support around her. She hasn't had too many challenging situations just yet. But the other thing is, like we said, they have a slight wind from behind them, which means they're on restricted gears. It's difficult to do anything. The pace is quite high. We haven't seen that many riders go on the attack simply because they may feel that it do more harm and damage to their own legs rather than their competitors, so they may have just resigned to the fact that we have to rely on our team lead-outs in the finish, which are going to be very important to get your riders out of trouble, lead riders.
This is this group of riders who have been out the back for a long time, but they're going to get a bit of motivation now because they can see cars in front of them for the first time. And you're always told, Rochelle, aren't you, as a young rider, never give up. Just keep trying, and you may well come back. And now, for the first time, they can see that the work they've all been doing is paying dividends. They're doing a little bit of work. One rider goes to the front, they swing to the left. The Norwegian rider's just done that. The next rider comes through, goes through hard, swings over to the left, lets the next rider come through. This is how they keep the pace higher than if they just rode in one pace line.
Yeah, they'll certainly get motivation from seeing those cars, and they are sharing the pace there as the Belgian rider, Dina Scavoni, just goes for a bottle. And interestingly, she looks nearly identical to one of the superstars from Belgium in Lotte Kopecky. She's got a very similar style.
I was thinking that, yeah, absolutely. Lotte Kopecky was a world champion of the Madison on the track. She does sit on the bike exactly the same.
Yeah, they've got the same type of build and physique and riding style. So the Belgians have obviously developing well their juniors, and Jolien Daughter has gone on to a great career on both the track and the road. Lots of struggles this year with injuries, though, for Jolien Daughter.
Looking down on the peloton then, 31 kilometres to go. Still no major breakaway. Justin Loretz is thinking that some more hills might have thinned this out a little bit and reduced some of the crashes. But each course is different. They've decided that a flatter course for the junior women would have been an interesting one, and the pace has been high, but this little wind from the back has meant that everyone is able to stay in there. Everyone's just got to think about their nutrition, keep themselves together, make sure that they're ready for what is going to be some finish into the line in Harrogate up Parliament Street. But there's a few little climbs on the way in there, not too bad, but they're enough to thin the peloton out. If you don't know the terrain, we're coming from Doncaster, which is down to the southeast of Harrogate, and we've kind of gone up towards York to our right-hand side, through Tadcaster, through Wetherby, and into Harrogate. Leeds is to our left-hand side, York to the right-hand side, and it's a chance to see a different part of this county that we haven't seen already. The French, Rochelle, to me, they've all been riding together at the front for the entire race. There's not been too many problems for them. They've all been there. They've not ridden on the front unless they've had to, but I wonder what the French hopes are today.
Well, they have a couple of riders that have a real chance, and they've been very relaxed here, riding around the front. Kristina Nenadovic, 17. She was third at the European Junior Road Race. She's had some podiums this year in the Junior International Racing, and Leah Cariña, she's 18, so she would be second-year junior and third in Trofeo di Moreno, which is the junior or baby race of the Binda race that the elite women do in Italy, a very hard race. So they're the type of riders that would want a few more hills in a race at the World Championships. But yeah, definitely France are in there looking good for the finish.
This is a very famous brewery, John Smith's Brewery in Tadcaster, established in 1759. Home to 3 breweries because of the quality of the local water supply. And if you're a beer fan, John Smith's, Coors and Sam Smith's. And it's the oldest brewery in England. There we are, going past John Smith's Brewery in Tadcaster. Sorry, we're talking about the French. We had to just mention the brewery.
Yeah, the French and the Italians, the Belgians, the Germans, now we're all seeing them come towards the front, and they all look quite comfortable. We've spoken about the big favourites teams. Great Britain, they're taking on a bit of the responsibility at the front there. USA, of course, being favourites, but the other teams then that we look to will be interesting to see what the Italians do. They don't have a clear favourite for today's race, but they always come together as a team. As we saw in the final moments of the junior men's race yesterday, we didn't see them do much at all in the start of the race, but they really animated the final bit of the race behind the breakaway rider, the winner, eventual winner from USA. So you can see France, they're all sticking together now, moving their way to the front. And this is where you'll start seeing riders really dedicate themselves to their leaders, because sometimes you leave it a little bit open for the first 3/4 of the race, but then you pick a leader, and if they're feeling good, you ask them how the leg's feeling. They'll put their hand up and say, yep, I'm really good for today, let's do this.
If they're out in the group at the moment and they've got a plan, and the plan, for example, is we're riding for Eleanor, and they say, how is Eleanor right now? And she says, do you know what, I'm feeling terrible, as we go past Doncaster Viaduct, which is an 11-arch railway viaduct built, amazingly, in 1848, a Grade 2 listed building. If Eleanor just says, guys, I don't feel that good today, what will happen?
They would have definitely discussed that in the team meeting, a backup plan if something was to happen to Ellie early on in the race, or she didn't feel good. They'd have another rider, a backup plan, and it may be not taking that rider to a sprint. It might be to break it up and to make it hard on trying to get that rider in a breakaway. Whereas if Ellie's feeling good, they'll hold them back to do a lead out and make sure Ellie's out of trouble coming into the finish. So now we see the race light up. It's one of the riders that has touched down today. Many of them have.
Yeah, an attack here from Slovakia. Megan Jastrab immediately goes on the attack. And one of the British riders tucking in as well. So they're deciding that Jastrab is thinking, I need to go with the right move here. I'm wondering whether her plan is that she'd rather be in an attack in a breakaway than go for the sprint. Although when she won Trofeo Binder and Chatilio, she unleashed a furious sprint up a climb, not unlike Parliament Street. It's not quite so steep, but it's a long, long sprint that I saw her win back at the beginning of the season in Italy. The race calms down again. Jastrab seems to be controlling everything here. She's not only the race favourite, but she's quite happy to think, right, let's just nullify this. I don't want anyone going away. 27.5 kilometres to go.
Yeah, I think you're right, Anthony. If the finish wasn't as tough as it is, and it's a real power, strong rider's finish, that she may have wanted to go away in a solo breakaway, but she has a very, very good chance of just waiting to the finish and using her power to stay out of trouble. Use her team to stay out of trouble in the corners and then using her power at the finish. So I think we could see a really interesting sprint here.
That final corner into Parliament Street is going to be more than interesting, I think, if it continues like this. Thanks for all your messages on Twitter. Lawrence Kirby and Aaron Wiley supporting Ella and Stella, and of course Stella this morning as they make their way towards the finish. I hope you're enjoying the racing. If you'd like to give us your thoughts, ask any questions with 27 kilometres to go, don't forget you can follow at UCI_cycling on Twitter, at Yorkshire 2019. There's also an app you can download if you want to keep up with all the information on the World Championships over the weekend. And you can message at Rochelle Gilmore and at Ant McCrossan with any questions. The peloton all together. Just wondering if that group of riders is just about to rejoin. I don't think they are too far behind. 95 riders taken to the start. So far we haven't seen the Russian rider or talked much about her, Agil Gariva. She is still in this peloton. She was the time trial world champion the other day. She gave a really interesting interview at the end of the race when she said that the title the jersey didn't mean that much to her. She just wanted to show people that it's possible to do something when you've had to overcome adversity. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation that she had in the interview. She's actually over there on the right-hand side for the first time we see her, wearing number 43 in the red, white and blue of Russia. She's got to be a race favourite today.
Yeah, there's a lot of favourites in this race today, and it's a hard one to call. We always talk about junior racing, that there's so many riders that we don't see on international level, and we don't know who's going to come out and win. All we know is on paper. When we look at the results, Jastrab and Ellie Backstead, they're the two standout favourites. You've got the Swedish rider, Olsen, you've got the Russian rider who won the individual time trial, and then the Dutch, they've got Van and Roy, who will be a very strong contender in the finish. I think she'll be very tough to beat, actually, coming into the finish. So, very difficult to pick out a winner.
Little left-hand turn now coming up. The church there as we go past, and more fans at the side of the road. Everyone enjoying the atmosphere. There's a big crowd here at the finish line now. 25 kilometres to go. We're heading now towards Thorpe Arch, which is the home of the Leeds United training ground, who are in Division 1 of soccer in the United Kingdom. As France now start to mix things up a little bit, and immediately going on the attack is the Chilean rider Catalina Soto Campos in the red and blue jersey. She looks really comfortable today. I'm very impressed with the way she's been riding. This is an attack, and they are going clear now from the front of the peloton. The first attack that we have seen gain any distance for a little while.
You can see how difficult it is for these riders to get a clear break from the peloton. These riders are on restricted gears. 52-14 is the combination most of these riders will be using to stay within the regulated restricted gear ratios.
Do you think the restricted gear is too small or perfectly the right size?
I think it's okay. Personally, I can't remember riding on restricted gears, and if I had to go back to this particular gear, I feel it's very, very small, but these juniors shouldn't know too much difference from what they've been on. As we said, if they ride up as a second-year junior in an elite race, they should stay on their restricted gears. They do have a regulation now too that you can't just block off the 12 and the 13 cog at the bottom, because obviously you could adjust that during the race. So they've banned that blocking off of gears. So they're rolled out, their bikes are rolled out and tested before the race and after the race for the result winners. But a pretty good effort here from...
This is Cédrine Kerbol of France, and the Chilean rider who has been involved in a lot of the riding at the front, Catalina Soto Campos. But the French rider just said to her, Cédrine Kerbol just said to Catalina, "You're going to do some work," and she looked like she didn't really want to. And I think her answer, Rochelle, will be, well, I'm a solo rider. Why would I work with the French? You can get away, and then I'll work when I feel like it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of acceptable at this point of the race, because being a sole rider does give you the right to just sit on there. That is a handy gap that they've just put into the peloton. We're going to see some action from the peloton now, because I'm sure they didn't expect that, but we've seen a fantastic ride from the athlete from Chile.
23.9 kilometres to go. Ben Hamilton is supporting Ella and Stella from New Zealand. We've got a lot of New Zealand fans hoping that they can bring home the title. If you're wondering what the situation has been and you've just joined us, we now have two riders on the attack. Cédrine Kerbol of France and Catalina Soto Campos. So far today, more crashes than attacks. It's been a nervous day for these riders.
Yeah, and actually it's not from a lack of trying for the attacks, because there has been a few that have had a go, but they just haven't gone far off the front until we see this this duo now that are still in sight, which is not going to play into their advantage. When the peloton can see that they're there, it's the Germans that want to get a move on here, and Great Britain reacting there. They've got Ellie Backstead in there. They'll want to look after. The closer they get to the finish, the more they'll want to jump straight on these moves.
I'm just hearing on Radio Tour there's a few riders just about to rejoin the peloton. So I think that group of the Dutch and also the rider from the United States who had that really heavy crash, Ava Sykes, are literally just about to get themselves back into the peloton, which would be very good news for the Dutch. They lost two riders in that crash, Temke Gerritsen and Ilse Plumers. Those two riders, if they rejoin, that's really going to help. 8 seconds. It looks a little bit of a bigger advantage than 8 seconds to me, but these two riders are looking good as they go clear. This is going to animate the run-in to the finish in Harrogate.
Definitely going to add a little bit more tension there in the peloton. Who's going to take up this chase? A lot of these riders, as we said, they've come to the conclusion that they're going to need to support their lead sprinters. The closer they get to the finish, it's 22.7 kilometres to go. The peloton, they look quite relaxed, but the tension will be slightly building as these two riders out in front keep increasing their lead now, out at 19 seconds.
has suddenly gone out to 25 seconds. The gap is growing, and it's growing significantly, and Russia now go to the front because they believe that their rider Agil Gariva can win double gold medals in the junior category in these World Championships. This race is now starting to ignite. The French rider Kerbol with Soto Campos of Chile. She flicks the elbow. That's the traditional sign, which is to say, come through and do some work. Soto Campos not really contributing. Now the Italians start to get on the front. And the United States of America also getting involved in this. There's a lot of action suddenly at the front.
A lot of discussion going on, Anthony, isn't there? They really don't want to let this go out too much further. So the Russians for Gariva, it'd be hard to imagine she could win in a sprint. She'd have to do something a little bit earlier, but she's super strong. We saw that she was in a league of her own in the time trial, having taken that wrong turn, staying so relaxed. She said that she knew she was going to win it. So obviously she's been training to data and knows that her capabilities are higher than the others in the peloton. So that's the Russian rider, Gariva.
There's the gap up to the two riders, the two New Zealanders towards the back of the peloton. They're going well so far. They've had some problems, both of them being caught up by crashes, but they are in there okay. And I'm just seeing if the Chilean rider is going to go through and contribute. She looks very cool, calm and collected there in that red jersey. She's been at the UCI training school down in Aigle in Switzerland, where a lot of the young riders who don't have big teams go and are funded, and now she goes through, she starts to work. She thinks, right, now is the time. The gap has been established. And let's take a look here. They are starting to work.
So she did do a turn, and now there's a bit of discussion about maybe saying, you know, protect me a little bit when I come through from the wind. You know, don't swing out that fast. So maybe just a little bit of discussion about looking after each other. Kerbol, the French rider, and Soto Campos from Chile, a strong rider, very relaxed. And Germany take to the front. No, it's Latvia. And closely followed by the rider from Ireland and the French team. Great Britain, you can see, very well positioned in the peloton.
You go to the UCI school down in Aigle, and they've got all the facilities because they have a 200-metre track as the Italians now go on the move at the front, trying to establish a little bit of a chase. They don't want these two riders to get 30 or 40 seconds on the run-in, and the Italians, as always passionate, always telling everybody what to do. There's no quiet Italians in this peloton. They will be urging everyone on. Now Great Britain try to bring this back. Eleanor Backstead is up towards the front. The French doing a great job of blocking, so they swing across the road and slow things down.
Yeah, they're just trying to upset the pace there. You only had two riders, the one Italian and one rider from Great Britain, that were putting the hammer. You can see a lot of riders actually taking some deep breaths, putting their heads down there, so perhaps it's a little bit more demanding out there than it appears to be.
This is this group of riders which has swelled considerably in numbers, and Zoe Topper in here as well, I think. Two riders from the United States of America, two riders from the Netherlands, one Colombian, one Dutch rider, one Brazilian, one Hungarian, one Norwegian. They're almost back.
Well, this could make a big difference to the end result, because there'll be two more Dutch back in there and two more USA riders. They've both got strong favourites. The USA, Jastrab, one of the favourites on paper, and Van den Rooij from the Netherlands. So they'll have a strong support team coming back.
This is Wetherby Racecourse, hosts the National Hunt Jump meetings and flat racing since 2015. Wonderful race course, and we've got two in the race today, including Doncaster that we went through just a little while ago. We're heading now towards Wetherby, which was a scene of the paracycling last Saturday, which seems like ages ago, but it's less than a week ago. These two riders working well. Cédrine Kerbol of France, Catalina Soto Campos of Chile, as they make their way down towards Wetherby now. The pace is starting to accelerate. These two riders looking very strong indeed. 29 seconds, goes up to 30 seconds on the run into the finish in Harrogate. The first rider across the line will be the world champion. Gold, silver and bronze medals to be presented in not too long now. 18.7 kilometres to go. So we're looking at a ride of what, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just less than 30. And we'll know exactly who the world champion is. And so many riders will be thinking they've got an opportunity. Anyone who's able to sprint up the Parliament Street climb into the finish has got a big opportunity now. Great Britain still riding tempo, not furiously chasing. They seem to be quite composed with what's going on.
Yeah, I guess they're waiting for the two riders out in front to tire a little bit, but they are burning a little bit of energy by just putting one rider on the front without a really high pace closing in that gap. But the strong teams are the riders that have a leader that could win this race. The Netherlands, Great Britain, Russia and the USA. They're all well positioned at the front there, but nobody taking it up the chase. They might hope that it just comes back naturally.
Gabrielle Lennart is the American rider who is towards the front, looking after Megan Jastrab. They've only got one teammate now of Megan. They don't have all their riders back in the peloton yet. Zoe Topper and Ava Sykes are out the back. Katie Klaus was out the back as well. This is Weatherby heading in now to this town on the Old Great North Road, and the same distance from Edinburgh as it is to London, 198 miles exactly. They're going to head into the town now. Weekly market is held here every Thursday, and it was listed in 2018 in the Sunday Times report on the best places to live in Northern England. A big crowd in Weatherby greeting these junior women, who I think will be racing in front of one of the biggest crowds they've ever raced in front of. Look at that, all lined out. Very fast pace now, but the crowd enjoying, cheering on these young riders as they head in towards the finish. And it's great to see the school kids out here being inspired by seeing these junior women race towards Harrogate.
Well, it's very inspiring for the young school children. They do go home and tell their mum and dad about it. It's something they don't forget. And especially if they've been following one of the riders, that's what the school's encouraged to do now. They get them really involved when a cycling race comes into town. We saw it with the Tour of Yorkshire. And unfortunately for the women, the rain has started to fall.
It's pouring with rain in Harrogate. It has just started to pour with rain. We thought there might be a shower, and unfortunately it's happened early, and that is going to make this final run into Harrogate very sketchy indeed. The American riders getting ready for action. The arm warmers are coming off. They look ready. They look focused. They know that it is time for battle as they come into Harrogate, but now they're going to have to think about how they get through these corners. Rochelle, you're a sprinter. You know what it's like when everything is on your shoulders to bring home the victory. If you know it's going to rain on the run-in, what are you thinking now?
Well, you do have your teammates that you want to rely on to get you into good position, but when you get this close to the finish, I'd say within the last 15 kilometres, you need to take things into your own hands. So you need to be a little bit on autopilot and make sure you just stay there in that washing machine of riders at the front in the top 5. So as it keeps moving around, you need to be there at the front and stay out of trouble. I think it's a very dangerous position to be, you know, outside the top 10 in the last 15 kilometres. We've seen a lot of crashes early on. It's starting to thin out. As the pace gets higher, there tends to be less crashes. But riders are just taking on their last bits of nutrition and fluid now coming into the finish.
It's not far to go now, and they are still letting this lead sit at 32 kilometres. They must be very confident at bringing back Kerbarol and Soto Campos. And as we've seen in junior races before, it can all go horribly wrong. These two riders could stay away.
They certainly could. It's very interesting, you know, if you look on paper at the results from the junior racing this year, you definitely say that Jastrab and Backstead, they've been the two rivals that have been fighting out some of the bigger international junior races throughout the season. And then you have the Netherlands, where they just have the strength in numbers. They'll probably throw out the attacks coming into the finish. And the Italians, they always animate the end of the race as well. And then we've got lone riders in there. The rider from Sweden, when I say lone riders, I say without too much team support. They do have riders in there, but you can see now they're spinning those small gears.
62 kilometres an hour by Kerbayol, while Soto Campos freewheels behind, trying to open up her last little energy drink, which is a little energy shot that she's taking. And she's decided that she can't open it, so she's going to put it back into her pocket. That's it's that last little shot, isn't it, they take of energy to just wake them up. There'll be a tiny little bit of caffeine in it, and it just energizes them.
Yeah, it's the rider from France that we saw initiate the break and do the majority of the work while the break was establishing and the lead was going out. We didn't think that the rider from Chile, Soto Campos, was going to do any work at all. But after the break was established and the gap went out over 20 seconds, she started to contribute. Now they seem to be doing even turns. But as the peloton strings out now, we might see that gap of 33 seconds start to come down. Great Britain, mean business now. They've got Ellie Backstead, one of the favourites in there. She looks quite comfortable, just a few riders back, well protected, out of the wind.
But the riders don't realise that in Harrogate it's pouring with rain, and you're chasing hard. When you start chasing hard on dry roads, you'll come back very, very quickly. But if they leave it too late on the slicker roads, anything could happen.
Yeah, if they have too many corners coming into the finish when it's wet, it could play into the advantage of the breakaway riders with 14.5 kilometres to go. There will be a point, I think, where they'll want to get together, the stronger nations, and just close this down as quickly as possible.
Danish representative.
Here go the Italians on the attack.
Another big move here from the Italians. They want to close this down as quickly as possible. The Russians also there. Now we're on to these little climbs. As we come in towards Harrogate, the roads get harder, and this is the... sounds like there's a crash at the back of the peloton again, and it's Francis van Rensburg of South Africa, who I think has been riding a good race so far, has been up towards the front with Kelsey Van Schuur, and again the chain comes off. That was unfortunate for her.
Oh, a typical thing we've seen all day, that the crashes are happening from one side of the road as a domino effect, and it's the rider on the other side of the road when it all gets too much and they run out of space that ends up hitting the deck. But
it's amazing how many times chains have come off today.
Yeah, as we said, they may have had the bikes transported in a truck. If the rear derailleurs have been knocked on those electric gears, that it could be that, you know, early in the race we saw a lot of mechanical issues. So Great Britain now is joining in with the attacking, and as we thought it would be, Great Britain, Italy and the Netherlands, a rider from Ireland in there doing very well, and you can see now this pace is hard.
This is very, very hard now at the front. Great Britain winding it up.
Yeah, doing the job for Ellie Backstead, and that was a hard, and she was hoping someone will come over the top there, but you can see the gap is closing down to 21 seconds, so that rather than doing a chase to bring this back, they're just going to let the attacking keep happening, like they're racing for the gold medal, and they're not too concerned about the two in front. As Belgium now come into the fore, they have a strong rider in Julie de Velde, a very good chance of winning here in the junior women's road race at the World Championships.
Well, that's puzzling.
Yes.
Heading towards Spofforth Castle.
Looks like fun, actually.
Get lost in there for hours. Kerbayol and Soto Campos, 22 seconds. The rider from Chile on the right-hand side in the red jersey. The French rider has done the majority of the work, but now Soto Campos is working well with her. She is contributing fully to this work. And now you can see, Rochelle, the rolling roads. It's now starting to get a little bit harder. They're going to turn left now, then they're going to work their way up over these little climbs. And this is where there are springboards for possible attacks. If a rider is not sure of their sprint, they can think about just a little attack on a tiny little rise. Denmark now starting to wind the pace up in the red and white as they make their way towards the front of this race. Denmark, of course, have seen them win many junior world medals and titles. The most famous recently, Amelia Diedrichsen, who won in 2013 and 14 and then went off in Qatar to win the elite world title in a spectacular sprint And when she beat Kirsten Wield into second place, timing her sprint to absolute perfection. At the back of the group then, a few riders starting to suffer. Yoreli Acevedo is the rider on the pink bike, wearing number 46. One of the New Zealand riders now starting to suffer, just trying to stay in there. You've just got to hold on and hope that you can get there to the finish line. Let's hope that she can get herself back in there. It looked like Ella Wiley was starting to feel the pace, but she gets back into the group.
Yeah, just struggling on the back there to close the gap, and it's a pace that's doing the damage now. We saw a lot of mishaps and chaos in the peloton with riders coming off the back, but now it's the pace that's really starting to take its toll on these riders at the back of the peloton.
Spofford Castle, a fortified manor house built by Henry de Percy in the early 14th century, ruined during the English Civil War, now run by English Heritage as a tourist attraction. Spofford Castle. Next on the horizon is the finishing town, the spa town of Harrogate. That is where we are going now. A very popular spa resort in the 18th century, as these two riders continue with their attack, and they'll deserve a little bit of a bath later on when they get to the finish line after their efforts. 24 seconds now is the lead. Who is going to bring this back, Rochelle?
I think it will come back. I think the peloton will get very excited and the attacking will happen. Perhaps it'll be the Dutch that go on the attack. The Italians, for sure, they'll want to go on the attack, whilst Great Britain and USA look after their lead riders who have got a handy little sprint on them. And maybe the Russians as well. Gariba, the strong time trial rider who won whilst also going the wrong way in the junior women's time trial. But I think it will come back as we get closer to the finish and the peloton gets a little bit more excited and a few more attacks go. But at the moment, the two riders out in front from Chile and from France, they're working well together. Ooh, nearly another little crash there with De Wilde from Belgium. It's
so nervous in here today. World titles are always a nervous day, but this one has been extremely nervous. There's been so many crashes. The peloton started with 95 riders. As we look down now, there's probably, what, 30 riders left in this group, maybe a little bit more. More riders working their way back through the convoy, but it's starting to settle down. These little climbs now, you can see the much more dark out here on the road. They're going to get rain for the first time as they make their way towards Harrogate. They go through the 10-kilometre to go point. The roads are looking a little bit more damp in here.
Yeah,
and it's chilly, isn't it?
It's getting cold, actually. It's been wet in the last few days, but not particularly cold. We see some of the riders still wearing their arm warmers, shoe covers, but the roads are a little bit more damp here in Harrogate. So when they come in, they will have a few corners coming into the finish in the last 4 kilometres, but they are quite sweeping. There could be a little bit of congestion in the middle of the peloton, but if you're in the front, I think they look tight on the map, but I think they can swoop around those corners.
28 seconds. Just a reminder then, this is the Women's Junior World Championship from Doncaster to Harrogate. These riders looking to pull on the rainbow bands as the significant jersey of the winner of the world title and pull on the gold medal. Last year's winner, Laura Stigger, was from Austria. She won in a wonderful finish of the race. France took the silver medal. Canada took the bronze. In the last few years, the medals have gone to Italy twice with Pironi and Balsamo. The United States of America won in 2015 with Chloe Dygert. Amelia Diedrichsen of Denmark won for 2 years running from 13 and 14. And Lucy Garner of Great Britain won double world championships back-to-back in 11 and 12. Not far from the finish line now. We are getting very close to finding out who is going to be this junior women's world champion. Some beautiful areas here in Yorkshire. We've seen them from their splendour of the shots from the helicopter. But still, these two riders have their advantage intact. Kurt Boyle in the blue, white and red of France, Soto Campos of Chile, and now they go on to much wetter roads. The rain is definitely falling, and outside our commentary box window, It's more not pouring with rain now, it's more just drizzle.
Yeah, but like you said, Anthony, coming into the finish with the wet roads, it's going to make it harder for the peloton, and the two riders out in front are holding that gap pretty steady now. And we haven't seen too many explosions and attacks from the peloton, but they can't be too far away, because if they ride like this into the finish, they're going to be riding for the bronze medal. The two riders away from France and Chile, they're working well together. We have Curbol from France and Soto Campos from Chile out in front at 28 seconds. And you see the work now being done by Great Britain's not actually bringing the time down. There needs to be cooperation from the peloton. There needs to be a few of the stronger nations get together, because it's holding steady at 28 seconds. So this is a little bit of a waste of energy from the rider from Great Britain. Let's hope some of the other nations come forward and they can share the chase a little bit.
Well, as you know, Rochelle, normally you can bring back about a minute in 10K, and they're kind of dicing with losing the gold medal here.
They're playing with fire, that's for sure, and you can see the faces of these riders. They are actually working quite hard there in the peloton just to hold the wheels and hold their position. So it's looking better and better for these two riders out in front. I still find it a difficult task. I think the pace of the peloton will ignite, or should ignite at some point, but these two riders doing a great effort out in front.
Soto Campos has chosen a perfect moment here, Catalina Sotos, because she needed, as a solo rider, to find a breakaway that would work where a big team will not chase, and this is perfect for her.
Yeah.
A French team are going to do nothing.
She followed the right rider, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, luck can come into it, experience can come into it, just a general feeling. There's some riders that just know when the move's right, when they can really predict this one's going to go, it's the right one to be in, and there's other riders that just can't get the feeling for that type of thing. But Great Britain, you can see that all the riders in the peloton are working quite hard here.
I'm right in saying that Great Britain's women juniors are looked after by Emma Trott, the sister of Laura Trott, well, Laura Kenny now. And so they've got some good guidance from a rider who's ridden some big pro races. The New Zealanders towards the back now. Number 70 there is Jen Kosova, who had that crash earlier on. She's got blood pouring from the knee. 20 seconds. They've still got their advantage, but these long straight roads do not help a breakaway group. Soto Campos goes on the attack. She's decided that this is not working, so she goes clear.
Could be a world championship for Chile here. That was very interesting. She did conserve a lot of energy, and a very strong move.
This is a great move by the Chilean rider. She decided that she's getting slowed down by the French rider, who has done all the work, and on this little rise, this rider has gone clear. Are Chile going to win the world title? This is a fantastic move, and the French rider going backwards, but 13 seconds is now the lead with 6.5K to go. Rochelle, an impressive attack.
Yeah, an impressive attack. As we said, she skipped a few turns. She didn't work early on when that break of 2 was established. She sat on the wheel, but she knows this is her only chance as a sole rider to win this world championship. But the peloton are now getting anxious. They're getting excited. Riders moving to the front. They look tired. They all look tired. Is there someone in there with fresh legs? You can see Ali Backstead. She looks very good. If you compare her body language, the way she's just composed herself on the bike there, she is looking good.
Yeah, now Megan Jastrab also looks very good to me, but Eleanor Backstead on the left-hand side of the screen, dodging in and out of the picture, wearing the dark shades in the colours of Great Britain. You're right, Rochelle, looks comfortable, looks composed, but this rider's gone clear. She looks around, she knows that she must know how much power she's got left in the legs, she must know how she can time trial, and so far this is looking like a superb attack by Catalina Soto Campos. She's been on the move for a long, long time now, making her way up this little power climb, but she looks efficient and she looks powerful.
She looks good, but I think there's too much power left in the peloton. We saw USA just move to the front now. That could make the difference. They were the strongest riders in yesterday's junior men's race, and now the women from the USA are really putting the hammer down. And the riders from Sweden, they've got some really good directors in their team with a good game plan, and they have a rider that can finish this off in Olesen.
Catalina, as we mentioned a little while earlier, spends all her time either at the UCI school in Aigle, but also she's a member of Brunswick CC in Victoria in Australia. And I know a lot of people are cheering her on. They want her to win this world title. That's the distance from the helicopter. This is, and Emma Trott said, the British riders aren't anything to do with me at the moment. Monica Eden is their coach, and she looks after, with Chris Newton, the under-23 riders. So she just wanted to make sure that Monica gets her moment of doing such a great job with the junior riders from Great Britain. She's going to get brought back.
Yeah, the rider from Chile, Soto Campos, she's had her moment out there in front, but it's coming to an end now as the peloton start to close in this gap now. It's only 10 seconds and the Italians are on the front. Netherlands is there, Sweden in third position, Great Britain well positioned at the front.
You have to admire the way this rider's ridden. She's given it a good go today. She's tried to win the world title for Chile. The cars are coming in now at the front of the race, ahead of the race coming in into Harrogate now.
Ooh, a bad crash.
That's a bad crash.
Yeah, that was Jade Lenars. Sorry for the Belgium viewers. That's not
She's
good
shaken,
to see.
but she's getting up. That was a bad crash as they came out of the roundabout onto the hitting the road furniture. And she's okay. She's sitting up. A big crash as they came out of that corner.
Yeah, it may have looked worse than it is. So word is that she's sitting up and she's looking quite okay as the Chile rider just tries to push on, hoping that there's a little bit of disruption back in the peloton. But Russia now, they're at the front. They've got Gariva, the winner of the time trial in the junior women. We know she's got the strongest legs in the peloton, but does she have the craft to use that, and can she ride away from a very strong peloton?
Well, we know that this race finish suits a power sprinter, because Marcel Kittel won the stage of the Tour de France in 2014 here on a day when Mark Cavendish crashed out of the Tour de France in front of the entire nation, hoping he would take the yellow jersey. So we know that you need power, you need speed, but you need track craft and sprinting ability. Marcel Kittel, who's here now for German television, he's remembering fondly that win on this pretty much within 50 metres of this finish line here today in Harrogate. She's still clear. She's still riding well. She's holding them off by 4 seconds as the rest of the peloton line up, and Great Britain come to the front now. Ireland also represented. Eleanor Baxter is getting ready to unleash her sprint. Megan Jastrab of the USA is also there. So are the Italians. 3 kilometres to go, Rochelle. We are near at the end of this women's junior title.
Yeah, and it's Great Britain that take the responsibility to bring that back and close it down. Now we're looking for Ellie Backstead, Eleanor Backstead, Jastrab from America, and Van Anrooy from the Netherlands. They're your strong sprinters. Keep an eye on the yellow and blue of the Swedish rider. Here comes Backstead now, or Backstead on the right-hand side. Plenty of team support there for Eleanor Backstead.
The Russian rider moves up. Gariva, she's ready. The Irish rider is also up here. And Catalina Soto Campos has been caught. So the race is all now together. The Americans moving up. 2.7 kilometres of racing to go.
So Eleanor Backstead, she's the Great Britain rider with the black helmet on there in about 6th position, just moving up on the left. And Jastrab right up there too for the Americans in second wheel. Russians coming to the front. The Netherlands have got quite a few riders up there as well. 2.4 kilometres to go. And some riders being very careful through this corner. This is the problem. You need to be in the top 3 or 4. And this may be where Eleanor Backstead's made a mistake. She's too far back. It's still 2.3 kilometres to go, but it's going to be tough from there. It's the Russian rider. Is this Gariva?
This is a big attack. It looks like Gariva is going clear now. Riders coming into this. Another crash on the corner. Those riders hit the deck, and I think Gareeva's gone clear with Megan Jastrab. This is a very dangerous move for the hopes of Great Britain. The rider who was gold medalist in the time trial goes clear with 1.9 kilometres to go with the race favourite Megan Jastrab.
They took advantage of being first through that corner. That was a fantastic move, and it looks like Jastrab is not going to take a turn just yet because she knows she can win a sprint, whereas Gareeva has to break away. She has to do this. She has to drop Jastrab to win this race. That's the situation. Two of the strongest riders in the race, and the sprinter Ellie Backstead has to rely now on her teammates, but I don't know if anyone can close this down. If Gareeva rides this to the finish, she was hands down the strongest rider in the individual time trial.
Jastrab has done everything absolutely perfectly today. She's ridden down all the dangerous attacks. Gareeva, you normally say, Rochelle, sometimes if you don't mention a rider at all in a race, the chances are they'll win because they've hidden, and they've hidden all day. This is the hard little climb with 1.5 to go. But now you've got to be prepared to lose to win if you're in the peloton, because this group is going away, and they're going away strongly.
Yeah, they're super strong riders. And as we said early in the race, we didn't see Gareeva, but we knew if she was there at the finish, she'd have to throw out attack. Now Jastrab comes through. This is what's going to make the difference to these two riders. With both of their strength combined, it's going to be very hard for the peloton to come back.
This is a really tough little climb into Harrogate. It's a real kicker. It hurts the legs. The Swedes are trying to bring this back together, but Jastrab and Gareeva are trying to slingshot each other in to win this gold medal. Now it's fast downhill. It's 50 metres between the peloton and the two strongest riders in the race. And Great Britain made a big mistake in not putting Eleanor Backstead onto the wheel of Megan Jastrab on the run-in. Right-hand turn now. You really have to close the gap now with 1 kilometre to go. Sweden are closing it, but Gareeva's the fastest rider in the time trial. We know that she can hold them off.
Jastrab being the fastest sprinter and the more powerful rider, Gareeva being the time trialer. Here come the Dutch trying to close this down. They may have left it too late. It's going to be difficult. It's a long straight up to the finish, but don't forget the power of these two riders out in front. They really needed to close this down a little bit faster.
Here they come now. The final turn is going to take us into Parliament Street. Gareeva is throwing all caution. She doesn't mind. She's just going for a medal. Jastrab knows that she can beat her in the sprint. Onto Parliament Street. 500 metres to go.
Well, Jastrab won't come through for a turn now. She'll wait. She'll put the pressure on Gareeva. If Gareeva wants a silver medal, she has to ride this to the finish. There's nothing else she can do here. Jastrab was the favourite coming in. I think even if she has to kick off this wheel with 500 metres to go, she'll have this one in the bag. Gareeva and Jastrab. It may be another World Championship for the USA. It's looking good at this point.
300 metres to go. They are just ahead, and the riders behind are riding for bronze at the moment, but they go to a track sprint. Gareeva and Jastrab side by side with 150 metres to go. There's a huge crash. Loads of riders have hit the deck, and it looks to me like they're coming through. Who's going to take it? Jastrab now goes for the sprint. Megan Jastrab of the United States of America wins the world title ahead of the Belgian rider Julie de Wilde in second place. Third is Nooyen of Lieke Nooyen of the Netherlands. Gareeva in fourth. Backstead in fifth. Rug in sixth place. Jastrab, what a cagey rider. How cool and calm was that?
When you have the legs like those two riders had, Gareeva and Jastrab coming into the finish, Jastrab nearly left it a little bit too late. The peloton was coming, but she had more power in the leg than any other rider in that peloton. So she knew even if she accelerated at the same moment they came up next to her, there was enough road left for her to power on for the victory. Jastrab very confident, and what a World Championships for the USA.
Oof. They've won 3 gold medals already. Chloe Dygert, Quinn Simmons and Megan Jastrab, and all of them riders just with sheer power. A huge crash on the run-in, and that unsettled a few riders, but Jastrab, that was something special.
And the ride from the Belgium in second place, Julie de Wilde, very frustrated crossing the line. She knows if perhaps she had a stronger team or was able to get on the wheel around that corner, when we saw the break of the two riders, de Wilde could have been a world champion. Very disappointed when she crossed the line. And now we just see some emotional scenes that we've seen a lot of at this World Championships. These junior riders are running across the line, a big pile up in the bunch. Emotions at the finish. We can see out our window the German rider super frustrated.
Yeah, that's Lucy Meyerhofer, who's another rider we thought might do well, but she's so disappointed. A huge crash on the run-in, but they've run across the line because they want to finish. But their World Championship, 86 kilometres, or 85 and a half, and it was a Swedish rider who pulled her foot out, and then everyone hit the deck.
Yeah, it was very close to the front of the peloton too. And there was two Swedish riders there that came down. The Dutch rider, the Italian, then the German, Lithuania, all the riders we've mentioned as potential favourites. Maybe if that hadn't have happened, de Wilde may have been a little bit closer. Let's see now the Belgian rider, how close she actually gets as she passes Gariba. She's coming fast at the American. Not too close in the end. I think the result still would have been the same, but de Wilde is certainly coming with a lot of speed.
How cool are you in a Junior World Championship to go to the barriers, stand still pretty much against your opponent, and then still have the speed to accelerate and hold off a closing pack in the last 150?
Oh, look how fast de Wilde was coming, but no taking it away from Jastrab, because as I said, in many different scenarios in this race, she was going to win it. She had the legs. Outstanding performance from the rider from USA for the third gold medal. And this is what generally happens at a World Championship when the first medal is won by your team and the morale just lifts and it seeps through all of the riders that are in the hotel. They just get that extra bit of confidence. And Jastrab had the weight of her shoulders, the nation on her shoulders coming into this race. And we see the sprinting power of Jastrab.
That was a superb sprint by Megan Jastrab. 40 kilometres an hour, Rochelle, the average speed today, which is pretty quick. Behind her, Julie de Wilde in second place. For Belgium, Lieke Nooyen of the Netherlands takes the bronze medal. Then it was Gariva, the gold medalist in the time trial. Eleanor Backstead in fifth place for Great Britain. Naomi Rugg in sixth. Then Kata Vass of Hungary. Lea Courinier of France. Silke Mathisen of Norway in ninth. And Magdalene Valerius Mill of Canada in 10th place. Magdalene Valerius Mill, another Canadian in the top 10 in our junior world title. Let's hear now, though, from Megan Jastrab, the winner of the world title for junior women from the USA.
Megan, what's going on in your mind right now? You're a world champion.
I can't believe it. Like, I'm just smiling ear to ear right now, and I'm just so grateful for my teammates today. Like, it wouldn't have been possible without them. They were there from beginning to end. I know a couple of them got caught behind the crash, and they came back stronger than ever. And, like, near the end, there were still two off the front. My teammate, Gabrielle Leonard, she went to the front and drilled it 2 different times to bring it back. And I'm just so grateful for them. Like, they set me up at the end, and I was dying. I was not ready for that at the end, but, like, I just couldn't lose after their performance today, and I'm just so grateful that I had them.
Yeah. Take us through those final moments when you decided to take off, and it was pretty touch and go at the finish.
Yeah, like, I knew that it was going to be technical. It was going to be decided with, like, 10K to go over the climb, and then the fast descent is the left-hand turn. Like, I already said, like, to the team, like, you have to go through their top 5 if you want to be there. Katie Klaus and I were both at the front. I don't know her name, the Russian, took off, and I was like, well, this is what I thought was going to happen. I'm not going to let it go this time. And just stayed with her. Didn't want to really work just because I wasn't feeling the best, and I saw that no one was chasing. They kind of, like, let us relax, and then we just kept it rolling, and I saw that we had a big enough gap that I could, like, take a breather and then start my sprint. So that was great.
Yeah, you were one of the favorites at the start, so you coped with the pressure pretty well.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful, I will say. Like, being the favorite, it was like I had to play my cards right, and again, my teammates were amazing. I could put a lot of faith in them, so it was nice.
Yeah. Inspired maybe by the US team that's managing amazing performances here?
Yeah, like with Chloe Dagger winning by that margin, Quinn and Magnus yesterday, and then Ian and Brandon in the U23 is like, it's just insane.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful racing. Megan Jastrab, she's the rider who has taken the world title. Julie de Wilde in second place for Belgium. Lieke Nooyen of the Netherlands in third place. Behind them, Gariva of Russia, Backstead of Great Britain and Rugg of Switzerland. Backstead just outside of the medals. I think you identified on the run-in, just losing the wheel on one of those corners.
Yeah, she was taking that corner very cautiously, and I could see that she was on the brakes and lost a couple of positions as she was braking into that corner. And at that moment, coming out of the corner, while she was still on the brakes, Gariva and Jastrab were moving off the front of the peloton. So the work that had to be done from that point, I think, is probably what lost her the power she could have had in the sprint. So just positioning, letting her down a little bit there. But a great result, 5th place for Backstead. Moving into the elites next year, I've no doubt she's going to have a huge career ahead of her.
Replaying all the highlights. I don't know if they were highlights or lowlights, but a lot of crashes today in this junior world title, and a crash right at the finish line. You have to admire, as we watch the highlights, the way the Americans have ridden these world championships. They've had Ian Garrison, Brandon McNulty take silver and bronze medal in the men's under-23 time trial. Chloe Dygert wins the women's time trial, and yesterday we saw Quinn Simmons take the road race. It's been such an incredible few days for them.
Yeah, and they've ridden. There's an American that went down and actually got back into the peloton after that crash, but they've ridden with confidence. That's what I'll say. They are very strong. So obviously the American racing and the development programs that they have has done really great things for the young talents. As we're just watching some replays of the race, Great Britain supported Ellie Backstead very well today. This was an interesting move. The Chile rider, when she attacked, she knew she had to. It could have been the winning move. Not quite strong enough, or perhaps not late enough in the race, and Great Britain did a big job to pull that back.
They certainly did. Eleanor Backstead at this point was looking good over there on the left-hand side, but when Gariva made her move for Russia, Jastrab was immediately there, and Great Britain were just a little bit too far back at this moment, and you can't let Gariva, the world time trial champion, go clear with the race favourite. There was that huge crash in the background as a number of riders hit the deck, but Jastrab was superbly strong today and adds another gold medal to the United States tally. Yeah. Wonderful.
Fabulous victory there. Celebrations at the finish.
What's been impressive by the Americans so far is they've been the race favourites, and yet they've still dealt with the pressure. They've ridden with real confidence, and they have delivered on both the junior road races.
Yeah, it's really impressive to be able to be the favourite on paper and then come in and deliver. They've executed their plans that they've had in the races perfectly. They've been very committed to their leader, but it really does help to have a standout rider. I mean, it's you can just see there how fast the Wilde was coming. Silver medalist at World Championships. She should be happy with that. Disappointed at the moment, victory being so close, but an absolutely stunning World Championships for the team of the USA.
Well, in a moment, we'll have the podium presentation. The Netherlands take the bronze medal. The Belgians take the silver. But yet again, it's the stars and stripes of the United States of America with Megan Jastrab. Her average speed, 40.313 kilometers an hour. She was triumphant at the top of Parliament Street here in Harrogate. All smiles. The American team yet again deliver and do everything right. Disappointment, she was disappointed, but Julie de Wilde will realise that a silver medal in the World Championships is a great achievement.
And we see some emotions of the riders who had to walk across the finish line, a big pole up in the finish straight, and the frustration and emotion. At the Junior World Championships, it's a big opportunity for these athletes to show what they're capable of. And unfortunately for some, they weren't able to get the most out of themselves. Congratulations from Gary Sutton, the coach there. He's had a very successful week.
Zoe Topper going to the podium. She had a hard chase today after that crash. She's back at the finish line as we wait for the podium presentation. Gary Sutton must be smiling and very proud of his young team.
Yeah, I mean, he just has the ability to get the results. He lifts the morale in a team. I know when he left Australian cycling, there was 3 of the riders in the national team that were on my professional team, Wiggle High Five, and I had to deal with the tears for weeks of those riders because they didn't believe they could perform without Gary Sutton being in control of their programming and preparation. So obviously he has a huge impact on athletes. He works very well with the women, and he's done an amazing job at the USA with the endurance women, a very big part of Chloe Dygart's support team.
The crowd then waiting for the podium presentation of the UCI World Road Championships for junior women. This afternoon we'll have the men's under 23 race. That's coming up later today. It finishes quite late this afternoon. Hopefully the weather conditions will improve just a little bit and we won't get any more rain out here on the course. As the Americans must just be so composed and thinking, wow, what else can we do?
Yeah, I think they're on a good run, and you know when things start going well, it just steamrolls. And a little speech there from one of the teammates to Gary Sutton. I think they're just making a few little jokes here.
They're just enjoying the moment, aren't they, as we see more riders come in who've been left behind on the road after a really tough race. It looked blocked and calm a lot of the time, but Rochelle, 40 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, when we see the average speed there, knowing that we're on the restricted gears, but also seeing the fatigue in the riders' faces and the legs in the last few kilometres when the hammer went down, I don't think it was as easy and cruisy as it looked from our position. So the distance and the speed obviously took its toll on quite a few riders.
Thank you.
A happy Jastrab. I wouldn't say she's overly surprised. She had a strong season with great results, and I think anything less than this, she would have been disappointed. I think she kind of expected to win the World Championship.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The first time I saw her was when I commentated on Trofeo Binda at the beginning of the season in Italy, and the way she won that was absolutely stunning. And she's just kept the form going all the time. Moritz has just said the Germans had 3 riders caught up in the crash at 4.5K, and their final rider hit the deck at 300 metres to go. A frustrating day for Germany as we get ready for this podium presentation of the UCI Road World Championships for junior women. All smiles for Megan Jastrab. A proud moment for a junior rider, having achieved what she's been dreaming of doing.
Yeah. It's sometimes that they don't actually realise what they've achieved until later on in their careers, when they see that rainbow jersey sitting in the cupboard or mounted on the wall. I have one in my cupboard that I didn't earn. It was given to by Giorgia Bronzini when she won her 2nd Road World Championship. And, you know, I look at it and think, that's the one that got away from me. 2 times 2nd at the World Championships on the track. So I think it's a prestigious thing to win a Junior World Championship. And for Jastrab, it'll be interesting to see how she develops into the elite ranks and what she does from here, where she goes, which pathway she takes. Whether, you know, with the Americans, we see a lot of them base over there in the United States and Corin Rivera was the exception to the rule when she came over and joined a European team. As we see now the presentation of the medals.
Lieke Nooyen of the Netherlands takes the bronze medal. The Americans are producing some fantastic bike riders. I guess Evie Stevens and Megan Garnier were the two trailblazers in the current crop of riders, but now they've got so many riders coming through. Julie de Wilde of Belgium takes the silver medal.
We saw disappointment as she crossed the line, but I think when she reflects on the race over the next few days, she'll realise it's not necessarily the result that matters as much as the ability and capabilities and the potential that lies ahead.
The entire American team sitting on the little seats that are behind the barriers down there at the front of the podium to cheer on their team, and they look very, very emotional. Megan Jastrab is the world champion, and cycling is a team sport. You can't do it, as she said, without your teammates. They help, they look after you, they shelter you from the wind, they put you in the right position, and then you've just got to be calm and composed enough to put yourself in the right position after they have done their work, and that's what they managed to do today. Very well done to Katie Klaus, to Gabrielle Lehnert, Ava Sykes, Zoe Topper, as they took Megan Jastrab in to win that title. A very powerful rider, but these three riders did all the work to make sure, four riders did all the work to make sure they got there, and she got there to take the title. The flowers being presented now. And then, of course, she gets the commemorative watch, the special Rainbow Bands watch as well.
Yeah, a great post-race interview we saw with Megan Jastrab, where she paid a lot of credit to her teammates. And it's great to see at such a young age these riders realising and recognising you cannot do it without the support of your team.
They get ready then for the national anthem.
Of the United States of America.
Megan Jastrab is the world champion.
For our medalist, world champion Megan Jastrab, Julie van der Wiel, silver medal, and Lieke Nooyen for the bronze.
As we look here at the podium, Lieke Nooyen of the Netherlands, Julia de Wilde of Belgium, and Megan Jastrab are our medalists in this junior road race. Just to let you know that the UCI has just announced the date of the 2022 UCI Road World Championships, which are going to be in
The place where I was born and went to school. Wollongong, just in case you were going to have trouble pronouncing that. Wollongong, a beautiful part of the world. I remember Gary Sutton, who's the coach here of the USA team, telling me that I live in the best place in the world for an athlete to train, and now the World Championships are going to be there in 2022.
18th to the 25th of September 2022. So some of the schools out there form up their art out on the playground. I'm going to have the jersey is going to be signed in a moment by Megan. Look at that.
It's amazing, isn't it? This art that we're seeing here. We have a little bit of a buckled front wheel, but an amazing effort there. As we see one of the most memorable moments for a world champion going to the Santini stand to sign their first World Championship jersey. And for Jastrab, she has a huge future ahead of her.
So she gets her jersey signed. A very special moment. There's the results again. The top 10 in the UCI Women's Junior Road Race. Megan Jastrab takes the title, having been the pre-race favourite. And it's always difficult to manage to bring it home when you are the race favourite, but she did it with composure and she did it with power as she raced across that finish line. It was a very, very good race indeed. And we'll let you digest the riders who finished today's race. If there's a particular rider you've been supporting, you might be able to see their name on the list. This afternoon then, the men's under-23 World Championship. That's going to start in a little while. Of course, the cars and everything need to get from the finish here in Harrogate to the start of the men's under-23 race coming up soon.
Well, a lot of the excitement at these World Championships has come from the junior racing, that it's now come to a completion for 2019, but some very worthy winners of those Junior World Championship jerseys here in Yorkshire.
Well, a lot of riders completed the course as we go through. Only 3 riders there not completing today's road race, unfortunately, after crashes. And as we see the broom wagon coming in, which is the last vehicle on the road, there may well be one more rider left to finish. And so they should. If they want to finish the World Championship, they managed to do that. The men's under-23 road race will be at 2 o'clock UK time this afternoon. So we have a little bit of a break until we bring you that. That's going to be an exciting race. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us for this Women's Junior Road Race. Megan Jastrab is the world champion. Thank you to Rochelle Gilmore, who's joined us for a lot of the races. This afternoon, it will be myself and Rob Hales. Bye for now.